copy of said notice in the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News for publication on September 5, 2006. By the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on September 5, 2006. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 1727. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Okay, now please call the roll.
Mr. Muller?
Here.
Mr. Shumaker?
He will not be here today.
Mr. Tabasco?
Present.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mayor Bell?
And again, he'll be here in a little while.
This is back to school night. He should be here within the hour or so.
Hopefully the meeting will be over by then.
Okay, I know next that it says the hearing of citizens, but being that we do have two presentations to school-age children tonight, and it is a school night, we're going to go do those two things first. If you have the agenda, you'll see that that is 5A and 5B. So I would ask my fellow council members, Juan and Bobby, to come up front with me. And the first one we're going to do is the Clean Communities Award to Cub Scout Troop 515. Here in Howell, we're very proud of all our citizens that volunteer, but especially the children when they do things that are worthy of recognition. And just to give you maybe 30 seconds or less on the clean community stuff, we do have roads that are maintained by part-time volunteers, but we also have those that go around and clean up roads that are volunteers that are of the childhood age, and we don't necessarily have them doing like Highway 9 or some of the major arteries in town, but they do some of the back roads, and for that they're being recognized. This was a state program, and we have some awards here from Howell Township, but also from the state too. So, Juan, I'm going to have you hold the mic while I grab some of these awards and call out the names, and I'm going to have you come on up and receive your little plaques, and then maybe I'll have Kimberly come on down and talk about this a little bit more too.
Turn around for the camera. Okay. Come on. Give me that big smile.
Okay. Let's read this bar. The awards from the, we do?
Here.
All the students here are going to be receiving the same certificate, and I'll read one, and then I'll call up you individually. This is a certificate of appreciation presented, this particular one, to Andrew Grennan. On behalf of the Township Council and myself, we extend to you our sincere congratulations for being chosen to participate in the Kids Award ceremonies and your recognition at the state level. Again, this has to do with the Clean Communities, and it's signed by Mayor Joe DeBella. I'm announcing it today as Peter Tabasco, Deputy Mayor, but it is signed by the Mayor. Which one of you is Andrew? He's not here, okay. Juan, just keep handing me the... Next is Michael Sololowski. Did I pronounce that correctly? No? How do you pronounce it? Sololowski. Okay.
No, hey, I'm half Polish.
Jesse Giuliano. Then we have Michael Messina. Next is Mac Zimmerman. Joshua Schechter. Wisniewski.
Clap for Manny.
Tyler Jackson. And Tom Lupo. Kimberly said there is.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is actually the plaque from the state itself. It says an appreciation award presented to Cub Scout Troop 515 in Howell for keeping New Jersey clean and litter-free.
Real quickly, I wanted to present a plaque also from Sandy Huber, who is the Director of Clean Communities for New Jersey, to the council. The Clean Communities had won a cleanup award presented to Howell Township on May 25th, 2006 at the huge seminar we do every year where we get all the townships together from every municipality in the state, and Howell Township won the cleanup award. So I would like to present it to the council. Thank you so much for all of your support. Great, great program. Couldn't do it without you guys. And of course the children and the individuals that we have on a daily basis that works part-time to clean the roads. If you guys would ever want to see any information about Clean Communities, just go on the website and we'll be more than happy to get you involved in the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And for those that don't know, Kimberly Alvarez here is a former council person in Howell Township only 4 years ago. All right, thank you guys. Now we have one more. The second one on the agenda has to do with two students who went to China and achieved academically while they were there. There's 3 students? Okay. Oh, we have 3. Oh, yes, there are 3 certificates. So I'll call, you might as well come on down now, stand up in the front. Here, one, hold this over. There actually was an article in the Asbury Park Press about this just a few weeks ago. First person being Taryn Ledoux. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ledoux, okay. Yes. Second person is Jonathan Ledoux. I guess there's some relation there, correct? And the third person is Anthony Marino. So rather than me speaking about what you folks did over there, which one of you want to volunteer to be the spokesperson? Okay.
We went to China for 2 weeks, and we spent our time over there in 4 cities, exchanging cultures with students from China all over. We really had a great time, and we hope to actually make one step closer, help to make a small difference to prevent cultures and conflicts between.
Very good. I'll read to you what it says from the township here. It says, Certificate of Appreciation, this one presented to Anthony Marino, in recognition of your academic achievements and humanitarianism in participating in the People-to-People Student Ambassador Program to China. The rewards of being introduced to a new culture you will carry throughout your lifetime. Presented on this 12th day of September 2006, and is signed by our distinguished mayor, Joseph DeBella. Thank you very much. Yes, we can now head back behind the table.
Go back, we can go back.
I've just been told by Manager Tom Chernieski that we need to go into executive for a few minutes, so I'll need to ask for a motion and a second on that, and take a roll. And then we come back out. We'll then continue with the hearing of citizens.
Deputy Mayor, this is for purposes of litigation.
All right, so Jill, would you please read? Maybe wait 30 seconds while everybody clears out, that our students and parents. may continue, Jim.
Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of the New Jersey Revised Statutes require that all public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting, and whereas the Township Council of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10-412, namely litigation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of this meeting, and that the Township Council will reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that the minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session, and the time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public cannot be determined at this time.
All right, so I need a motion and a second to go into executive.
So move.
I'll second it, I guess.
Oh, okay, call the roll, please, Jim.
Mr. Malevich?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, the time is 8:10. We're calling the meeting back to order. And the first thing on the agenda is the hearing of citizens. I was actually given a list earlier in addition to the actual list, so there's two lists. And one of them is from folks that want to talk about Freewood Acres Park. And I noticed that we had a public hearing on that as part number 5C. So I would ask those that want to speak about Freewood Acres Park to maybe wait till we get to that section. But everybody else, if it's not about that, you may come up as called. The first person on the list is Ron McCallum Jr. Please come on forward to the mic. Say your name and address, what you want to talk about, what you like as far as action you want the council to take, and then continue.
My name is Ron McCollum Jr.
Pull that mic even closer.
It's on, please. Switch it on.
My name is
There you go.
My name is Ron McCollum Jr. and I live at 5 Holly Road. The matter I wish to speak about is the development that's going on that involves the removal of the Flame Hotel on Route 33.
Okay.
I know there's been a great deal of discussion about that project, and I know that the project has virtually changed ownership in recent months. They actually started on the project about a month ago, and I have a great number of concerns as to what the project is doing to the environment. I have with me some satellite photos from an interactive map on the Department of Environmental Protection's website that indicate that the land is clearly determined by the Department of Environmental Protection as wetlands. It has a couple streams running through it. It has surface water, and the area, for those who aren't familiar with it, is an area that used to be used as cranberry bogs, probably 40, 50 plus years ago. And you know, the construction project, as it's running right now, has already disturbed the groundwater, the surface water that is on that property. And as a local resident, I and a couple hundred other people have concerns in regard to the integrity of our well water, because there is no city services provided out there on Colts Neck Road, on Cranberry Road, on Yellow Road, or the Timberland development. You know, we are concerned about our wells drying up. The plants, from what I understand, don't have water going to, or septic going to, any of those streets that I just mentioned. In addition to the fact that the area is being clear cut, so the wildlife is being driven out. In addition to that, I understand that there was asbestos found in the destruction of the motel, and I'm concerned about No, I have not.
All right, so Tom, I'm sure you've taken the notes on these, and maybe we'll let you direct it to Bill if maybe you want to have checked out.
Yeah, again, this is a project that's been approved by the planning board, and they went through presumably they went through all the regulatory process that they needed to go through. What I think might make sense is you listed your primary concerns, and I would imagine you probably have others that you didn't go through. So perhaps the best way to approach this is for you and I to schedule a time where we can sit down with the our inspectors who are in the field out there, and specifically go through the files, an old file, it's an old planning board file at this point, and go through some of the environmental studies that were filed as a result of the planning board application process. Maybe that'd be a good place for us to start.
Okay. Could I bring this up to you so you can turn back on the phone?
I can also have your phone number, but not to announce it right now.
I also wanted to say that I had contacted the DEP to question their position on it. And the individual that I spoke to at the DEP said that, in a rather discourteous way, that if I didn't like the way they handled their approvals, then I should contact my own lawyer. When I simply stated that I took information from their website stating that they declared that to be wetlands, and
Well, you're doing the right thing by coming here and bringing it to our attention, and Tom has suggested the right course of action, so you've already given some things, and if you'd like to set up an appointment to come see him with the code enforcement people and with Bill, that's fine.
So, if I understand you correctly, did you say the DEP said to contact your own lawyer?
mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Well, they were being snotty because the DEP is part of the planning process, I don't know. But anyway, thanks for your comments. There's 4 other people on the list, and another name I recognize I've never having spoken before. I'll let go next, and that is Albert Rizzolo from 17 Jacob Drive. And just for the record, Mayor Joe DeBella is now here at 8:19. I'll take over as the chair of the meeting, starting right now.
My apologies for the delay. It's back to school night. Good evening, Mr. Rizzo.
Albert Rizzo, 17 Jacob Drive. Okay, got some questions. Approximately the end of May, this road that we were in the town hall, I think it's what we call Memorial Drive, the whole neighborhood was there over it. Over time, every weekend, we were constantly talking about it, but as time went on, as it got darker through the year, the meeting stopped. It seemed like it kind of came to an end. People weren't talking about it anymore. And now, so I guess maybe in the end of May, the road came in. Okay. From the time of the road, my wife told me about 8 o'clock in the morning, and she said it looked like King Kong coming through the backyard because she heard a rumbling and the trees were like wiggling and they were being the heavy whatever they were using to pull trees down. They just kind of came and like was just ripping trees down. She heard like all this noise, didn't know what it was. So I said, well, it's obviously something's coming through. They've been talking about this road for 2 years, so here it comes. So she went and checked. She was looking for was anything in a paper about it, was it coming through, was it approved, and whatnot. But she came up with nothing. So as time went on, every week they were doing more and more with the road, whether it was excavating it, cleaning the trees out and whatnot. It was just moving along. There was still nothing about it. And as more time came on, more heavy equipment came in. Every day, they were there about 6:15 in the morning. There were no signs, warning, danger, men working, no traffic control, nobody flags, directing traffic whatsoever. And then about 3 weeks ago, my neighbor next door was harvested by one of them coming through on Jacob Drive. And it seemed like this thing kind of came in, kind of like behind everybody's, back. It's like there was nothing mentioned about it, said about it. And I'm just trying to find out, like, what exactly happened, Okay, there's other things I'm hearing, because I have a great neighbor, Don Milano, was just sitting back here. Yeah, it's right up there. I mean, okay, I mean, look at, yeah. Okay, there's other things, speaking of things I'm learning, there's this road that's going in that I can't figure out why, but I'm hearing there's going to be no lights on the street at all, so it's going to be completely dark. And then the speed limit will be approximately 50 miles an hour.
I can tell you that is absolutely not the case, but we'll let you get through all your points, and then we'll answer your questions.
Okay, and the other thing is, the other big concern we first heard about in the meeting 2 years ago in the public meeting, the people who live on the opposite side between Cherry Lane and Pine Needle, right now, because I've driven in there and seen what was going on, how the construction was going, those roads are open. We're also hearing that those roads were closed. So this Memorial Drive would be the only way in and out, which seems kind of silly to go a mile and a half in the darkness. I mean, during the day, it's, be okay, but there'd be no lighting there whatsoever. And like with most kids, I've already heard this past weekend, they're back there, I don't know what they're doing, but I see kids on bicycles, I see somebody in a big black SUV come flying through there, knocking the cones down. And that's something else, they need the cones there, now they're putting the cones up. I leave for work at 6 o'clock in the morning, my neighbor and I both had to get up out of our cars and take the cones out the center of the road. They're just kind of playing with them. I guess it's just kid stuff, but it's kind of a hassle now and then. And the other thing, what's kind of getting, me and some others is with this road coming through, with Pine Needle and Cherry Lane closed, so that would be the only exit in and out of there?
Yes.
Okay.
Let you get through all your
Okay, all right. And the other thing is, if it's supposed to be seniors, sort of citizens area, where it's supposed to be people 55 or older. And also, I can't confirm it, but I drove through twice and I saw 2 families that were definitely not in their 50s, with children approximately, I say, 8 to 10 years old. Then I'm also hearing that the kids are being dropped off on the Bora Lane to pick up the school bus to go to schools in Howell. But I'm not sure if that wall is bricked. Is it Howell? I'm not sure where that neighborhood stands.
So those are all your...
Yeah, so it just kind of, like I said, it really kind of came in, like snuck in. It was never, except for it was 2 Saturdays ago, it was one day when there were signs up, danger men working, detour here or there. It was the only day, my wife was on this every day, she called me, she said, no, there was signs up today. But it just seemed like, because I would come through it early in the morning, when I come home at night, there's a truck that takes the front loader or the back loader in and out. He was a younger guy, he'd come in and completely drive around the Bora Lane up to Jacob Drive 3 times before I guess he got right. And twice I had to move my car out of the way because he would pull out, drop it back, and drive the tractor trailer, wherever he was going to put on it, and reattach it and leave. It just seemed kind of strange that he was driving around 3 times to make this, he was pull up in front of the road anyway.
Well, let me give you a couple of things. We had several meetings on the access road, and Mrs. Milanowitz is a good neighbor. She was at most of those and actively participated. All the meetings were done in public. They were advertised. It was talked about rather extensively. And there was actually a vote and closure. We must have had 100 people at least the one meeting when we finally came to a decision with respect to the road. So I can assure you it certainly wasn't done in a vacuum, and it wasn't done without a tremendous amount of public input. In addition, we had a volunteer public committee that for at least a certain period met with people from all sides of the neighborhood that were involved in discussing it. So there was truly a lot of planning and a lot of public discussion that took place at several meetings, some of which were dedicated really just to that issue almost exclusively. We had reports from the police department and really attempted to put a lot of thorough debate into the topic. There was no satisfactory resolution that was going to appease everyone. So we looked at all the material and made what we felt was the best decision for the safety and health and welfare of everyone that's involved. We've been in contact, in fact I spoke to Mrs. Milanowitz earlier tonight before the meeting, she's raised a couple of observations, and throughout the course of the construction, there were concerns that the trucks were driving too fast, that they were starting prior to our ordinance, and as those issues would come up, Township manager would get in touch with the construction company that was in charge of it. We had porta-johns placed on the property there so that the construction workers throughout the course of the day had access to obviously use the bathroom. There were signs that were posted, it's still there. Our police department was there on many occasions at sporadic times. In fact, for one period, they were there, I think, on and off for about a 2-week period at the direction of the manager because we were getting complaints that the trucks were driving through at rapid speeds. So they were there sporadically to attempt to identify any of those situations at the construction meetings. I know that the managers had discussions with the construction outfit around concerns that had and continue to come up from people that live right there about noise or trees or cleanliness. And I'll ask Mr. Czerniecki to comment on some of those follow-up items. As it relates to the speed limit, I can assure you it's not 50 miles an hour. So I don't know where that had come from. Ms. Milanowitz had also mentioned she had heard that. I'll let manager and the engineer perhaps comment on it, but that certainly is not the case, that that's going to be the speed limit. You are correct with respect to the access points in terms of what roads are intended to be closed off and will be available for emergency purposes. So they're being designed so a fire truck and ambulance, what have you, will be able to get in and out of them. And that was a point of contention in all candor. There were some people that wanted them closed, there were some people that wanted them open. In the end, we made a decision that we felt was in the best interest of everyone that was involved. With that, Mr. Czerniecki, I'll turn it over to you to perhaps fill in some of the other items that maybe I didn't cover thoroughly enough.
First of all, I think it's important what I say. I do sympathize very much with the residents of the neighborhood where the construction is going on because we have received the phone calls consistently and they come from throughout the neighborhood. And clearly there's been some disruption to the quality of life, at least on a temporary basis there. Just to hit the issue of age restrictedness, each owner of the building there has a deed restriction, and residents are required to be 55 and over to live there. And if there's a violation of that, the township will pursue it. We'll take action against the association as more of those buildings come online. And if anyone tries to violate that deed restriction, we will go after it. So it's good that you call it to my attention that you think something might be violated.
Actually, realistically, to me, whether they're 55 or 15 or 75, personally, I really don't care. You know, these are the things that are coming up now that I'm starting to hear. You go to the Wawa and whatnot, and you're talking to people around, this is what you're hearing. But there's other things which I'm not trying to make anybody over here run the board, but then from the beginning, I heard things, well, so-and-so on the town council is really good friends with the families on Pine Needle and Cherry Lane, and that's why they're getting those roads closed, because in the beginning, they were doing the biggest protest because they're thinking approximately 155 houses, everybody's multiplying it by 2, so that many cars on a daily basis, like Route 9 or the Park, will be coming in and out of these roads. So this is where a lot of information is coming from, and just to me, it makes no sense to have one single road from where I am. The road's there, I don't know how many feet it is from me. I'm the second house in, I'm across the street from Donna. I can see the road, I heard the construction going on during the summer, but it just seems kind of realistic. It just seems, why would that be, or have to be, the only road? Other than the people over there get a bigger stink about it, and they fought for it and they got it.
I have to tell you, Mr. Zoll, that truly is not the case. So if people live on Pine Needle or Cherry, I can assure you Mrs. Milanowitz was just as persuasive, had just as many people here, in fact, maybe even more, commenting on their side of the argument. So no one that I know of has any friends that had any influence
That's
or why they got the
things
road.
like this happen, it just
Clearly, in any town, there's a rumor mill. There's people who don't like a certain aspect, and their own story, takes legs. But we looked at this from a public safety perspective.
Absolutely.
And we had traffic data, and we had analyses performed, and we had number of public hearings on it, and when all was said and done, we had to make a decision. It was going to make some people happy, it was going to make other people unhappy. But when you got a community of 52,000 people and you're in the spot that we're in, sometimes you have to make decisions that might not make everybody happy, but we're in the business, I think, of trying to do what we think is in everyone's best interest. And clearly this was not an easy issue. We must have spent a dozen meetings where this issue came up time and time and time again. And many of the comments that you've observed, your neighbors have observed, they're valid observations. You know, in the end, when we go back and revisit it, we did what we thought was in the best interest of everyone involved. This issue went as high as the New Jersey Supreme Court from a prior council that fought this in an effort to have other roads open to block that development from going in. We were dealt an unfavorable set of cards, and we tried to make the best of what clearly is not the most desirable situation. No one got preferential treatment because they came from one street over the next.
Just to answer one final question that you had, Albert, it is a part of Howell Township now. That was part of the process. We indexed that area. It's Howell Township.
It had been Wall Township.
2 years ago, they were talking that the only fire department down the street from us by, God, we can't think of the name of it right now, but that would be the, people were concerned if and then when there was a fire, there would be only one firehouse to accommodate everybody in the area. Why would they get that in Wall? You know, if they were part of Wall Township, why should they benefit from us?
But you need to understand, on the issue of fire, God forbid there were a fire there, our fire outfit would be closer to get to the first response bases, whether it was Wall Township or not. In the event of a fire, our responders would be there. In fact, just from a timing perspective, they would arrive prior to Wall being able to get there from a timing perspective. So at least now we're getting the tax revenue in the event that there was a fire or an emergency that required first aid responders. We're at least going to benefit from the tax revenue.
One day I went out there, I was off on the week of July, actually the week of 4th of July. I went out to speak to one of the workers about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now I was watching them work from time to time. I go out there, I went to ask him a question just about the road, and all of a sudden, as soon as I walked up, it's just odd. He suddenly just didn't want to speak English. It was just like, no English, it was just odd. It's like all these things came together that made me, because I don't get to come to meetings, usually working late, I see it on TV, you watch the replay. So I just said, you know what, I just need it for myself to hear from you guys, what's going on, what happened.
Well, as a last time, I'll tell you, any additional questions that you do have, you don't have to wait for a meeting. You can call our township manager, Tom Terdeski, and give him your comments, and he'll handle it.
Okay.
And anything that comes up that's a problem, we've had people call us and Mr. Chinansky's got the construction crew to act on it. Let us know, and we'll send people out there.
Okay, one way, I don't want to hold up the meeting, but just with regards to the lights, is there any problem about putting lights, just regular street lights on
Mr.
that?
Chinansky?
Right, our township engineer is most familiar with the design of the road, and I'll ask him to comment on that.
There are absolutely going to be streetlights installed. That is one of the last things that's going to be done. And the road will not be opened until obviously there is light.
Oh,
And the speed limit will be 25.
okay.
So
Under our new design standards, well, there's supposed to be 5-foot sidewalk, we're just not applying this situation.
The contract was awarded prior to those standards being adopted.
So we don't have to meet the standards of the
No,
level place now?
no, that project was started before we adopted that code.
There is somewhat of a sidewalk being built on one end.
There is a sidewalk on one side.
Yeah.
There's a sidewalk over?
Correct.
So not 50 miles an hour, there will be lights.
Okay.
So hopefully we've resolved some of the concerns.
Here, Mr. Molliday has it.
Mayor, if I may, just a quick comment or question. I'm glad to hear that the lights are going up. I thought I had raised that question back then when this street was being proposed, and I do remember that, or at least I thought I remember that Mr. Vina said that definitely lights will be up. So I'm glad to hear that that's resolved. As far as the sidewalks is concerned, I also suggested that the sidewalks be put, if at all possible, if it made sense from an engineering perspective, to be put away from the residential homes that are there now. And obviously that's not the case. The sidewalks, they were placed on the residential side. I guess my question is it possible, or I haven't been able to look at the plans, and I understand that the plans are on the up on our website, but I haven't had the opportunity to look. Can anybody tell me if it calls for sidewalks on both sides or not?
Sidewalk on one side only is what was designed, and it's actually in at this point.
Sidewalk is already in.
The sidewalk is in. I saw the one sidewalk, and like I said, on the residential side of the road, and not on the other side as I had suggested back then. And I'm sure that probably because of it didn't make sense to do it that way. I'm not a planner or an engineer. My only concern with that sidewalk being there is that any handicapped person coming on that sidewalk onto crossing over the what's that, Devil Lane?
Yeah.
That meets Memorial Drive there. Jacob, thank you. My only concern is that the way it was, and I was there over the weekend, I saw the sidewalk is being, actually the island that's in the middle of the road, it's actually further back from the intersection, if you would. So they would have to paint those lines to go on an angle, which is not a big deal, I understand. But any handicapped person would have to actually cross over that one street, go up onto the island, and then cross the other street to get onto the other sidewalk. And I thought that if they had the sidewalk on the opposite side from the residential roads, that would prevent that from happening, from having this handicapped people cross over basically 3 roads to get to wherever they have to go, if they want to go to the Howell or whatever. So that was a concern of mine. And also, this was brought to my attention tonight, actually, so I'm not going to take credit for it. There was a stop sign being suggested or proposed on the Jacob Road side at the intersection by the island. And I could see where that could become a problem with just the one stop sign there. Is it possible, could somebody look into possibly doing a 2-way stop sign so that everybody would have to stop at that intersection? That is kind of a narrow road. I was looking at it, I actually drove there, not into the new road, obviously. I would not violate and drive over cones. But I drove the neighborhood, and it is, it's a tight, and I could see some concerns there where it could be risky at times. Could they look into the possibility of doing a 2-way stop sign so that the people coming up Memorial Drive would actually have to stop as well? Like obviously we have 4-way stop signs. This would obviously become a 2-way stop sign, so everybody stops and then continues on. Is that possible? They can look into that?
We will look into it. You'll look into it? Okay, good.
Okay.
Appreciate your,
Okay.
appreciate your comments. Thank you. Mr. Howell, welcome, sir.
Good evening. Dr. Howell, my name is Mr. Molly kind of stole my thunder there. I also wanted to talk about the configuration of that new intersection. And try to explain maybe a little better now where people are going to be coming from the Wawa down Corner Road towards Jacob. Now to get onto the eastern side of the Boyle Lane towards Jacob there, they're going to have to cross 3 roads, traverse 6 ramps where they didn't have to before. So if a handicapped person or a mother pushing a stroller, now she's got to cross 3 roads. If that sidewalk could even just be taken down Jacob on the southern or the northern side of the road, at least to that intersection, they'd only have to cross 1 road and traverse 2 ramps. And I wanted to ask you another question. The sidewalk that was put in going all the way down that road, who's going to be responsible for the snow removal on that mile plus road?
Is that, I guess I'll get Richard Tom first. Is that going to be part of the homeowners association, or is that actually a road dedicated to Howell Township, part of the site?
Mr. Gannon, would you mind?
In the township road.
And so we expect it to be township road, and we'll have responsibilities for other parcels.
So we'll have to actually go out and show that sidewalk.
The township will, yes. I mean, I don't think we anticipated being a heavily pedestrian sidewalk, because there really isn't much that you want to walk through here. It's primarily an access road, as you know.
Right.
So in fact, neighbors have have asked us to make certain that it's not been set up to be conducive to invite people to walk back there.
Right, but my concern is if we say, well, we're not going to shovel it, we don't want people to walk around, and somebody falls and gets hurt, we're going to get whacked.
We would certainly, like we do with Digger and others, and that's somebody else's responsibility, but the town will have it added to the list of roads that need to be plowed, or shoveled in that case.
And there was a development approved in the lot next to the middle school. And I can remember when I was on the planning board, we had problems with developers getting approvals from Parkway Water, which is a service company for this area, because they said that they were physically running out of water. When they built the Lorelei Wood development, they could only do it with the addition of a new well that was going to be put in, and was actually put in on Lorelei Drive. Does anybody know what Parkway Water's actual state allocation numbers are?
State allocation
It's
for
like, with the situation that's going on in Dover Township, where Dover Planning Board approved all these building permits, and then the state came in and said, well, wait a minute, United Water doesn't have that much water. We don't allow them to take that much out of the ground every day.
Well, at this point, Parkway,
You like those.
I mean, to the best of our knowledge, at this point, Parkway isn't distributing any water. They're
Right.
buying all of the
But
water.
at some point in time,
Right.
Brick could say, we're not selling it anymore, we need it somewhere else, and Parkway would have to go back to their well, and now what happens?
Well, I think at this point, everything we've gotten out of Parkway is that they have sufficiently shut down those wells. Going back to them is not an option because they don't intend to remediate them. So they wouldn't be able to go back to them. So going back wouldn't be an option, and it would seem in your scenario, the only option would be for them to go out of business, to sell their business, and they are still hopefully attempting to have discussions with Brick.
No, what I'm asking is, if at some point in time, something happens in Brick, or Brick decide that they don't wish to sell to
Right.
Parkway,
Yeah.
you know, for any number of reasons, and it becomes necessary for Parkway, or if someone purchases it, to go back to the well system and remediate the water. Now we have 500 houses too many for what the state has allowed them to draw out of the ground. What do we
What's
do?
been explained to us, and the answer to that would be, what would happen if Parkway went out of business? The state DEP, the Board of Public Utilities, would actually step in and require one of the other water distributors to provide water on an involuntary basis until such time as there was a permanent solution. So my sense is, and I don't know this for sure, and maybe Mr. Chinesky and Mr. Gannon could step in, but it would likely be that kind of a scenario where if they just couldn't have access, one of the other water companies by the state regulators, this is what happens when these go out of business, gets required to distribute water until there's a more permanent solution. I'm not certain if either Mr. Chinesky or Mr. Gannon can elaborate whether or not my sense on that is.
But Mr. Mayor, why isn't that the case then in Dover, where they just said everybody's got to stop building and houses that were built, they can't issue CO?
Because maybe there isn't another water distributor that has access to that. We happen to be in a position where there are at least two other enterprises that have a common capacity to deliver water. We happen to thankfully have that advantageous situation at our disposal. I don't know what the water distribution, the plumbing is, so to speak, in Dover, but Mr. Mayor.
As a Dover resident, if I may help, United Water Company found other sources of revenue and other sources of water,
Right.
and are meeting their needs now. They also have an application in for an increase in their allocation. At this point in time, they are providing the needs they have through purchase water. So for United right now, it's, again, as it is for Parkway, they're buying water, it's not an issue at this point in time. They had an application in for an increase in their allocation factor, and if in fact granted an increase in their water allocation, their situation will be solved.
Okay.
Mr. Gannon, is there anything else that you could add, or is that sufficiently covered?
Question is very hypothetical. I'm trying to work it through, but eventually, especially if there's any connections, I'm sure the water would be allowed either from the reservoir or from New Jersey America. But I'm not sure of the underlying data. I'm not sure what you're saying, that there has been a tremendous amount of hookups and growth that has not been anticipated by Parkway or outside of that, or?
I don't know, what I was
In other words, what happened in Dover was it was like 1,500 units that they didn't apply for.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is when people go to the water company and they have to get a utility approval and say, yeah, we can give you the water. Well, what happens if they have to go back to their original source? And they said, we can give you the water, and we find out they don't have it, and then,
Well, they
you know,
go back.
that's what I'm getting at.
If they go back to the original source, and they're going to have to remediate and put in those.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if the DEP says you can have 5 million gallons a day, but for the amount of homes that we're approving now but haven't been built, they would need 7 million gallons a day. And the state saying, well, no, we're not giving you the other 2 million, what do we do?
I think that the answer, fairly comfortable based on what they told us, they might be defunct. That some other company, whether they like it or not, would be mandated to step in and supply clean water. The other thing is, thankfully, most of the parkway, what would be their normal footprint in Ramtown has been pretty well developed. So it isn't as if there's hundreds of more homes in the Ramtown area, as you know, that likely could still become online, and hopefully they won't be the supplier much longer.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Mrs. Dixell, welcome. Hello, Mrs. Dixell. You just, as always, please give us your name and address for the record. Welcome.
Barbara Dixell, Villages. We had a very interesting situation that came upon us by accident. Our Villages Board Vice President was out walking one day and he came across somebody surveying land on Route 9, and he asked the guy what he was doing, and he said he's surveying land for an owner of the property and the property may be up for sale. Well, I need to tell you guys that I don't know who dropped the ball, somebody did it to C1 waterway. Guess what? We're going to have a problem. So I went to the governor, my husband and I drove to Trenton this morning to physically, personally hand this package to Governor Karzai. So I'm going to sit and read all this to you. I'm going to show it to you. I need some answers. This is not going to be good. Okay, this is my letter to the Honorable John F. Karzai, Governor of State of New Jersey, State House, Trenton, New Jersey. Dear Governor Karzai, there is a critical situation at hand that needs your immediate attention and the issuance of an executive order as soon as you read this letter and review the enclosed photographs and documents. And by the way, I was out on both sides of Route 9 with my camera taking photographs. I've made, I don't know how many copies for every public official that's got to get this stuff.
For the public benefit, tell us what property you're
Okay, we are talking about the property that is next to the Villages. It's the forest that's probably been here. Yeah, but don't mix them up. All right, but it's got numbers on them, and they correspond to a number on each sheet. Okay, this is, for your information, this is the Villages and the forest, this forest that has been there probably a couple hundred years, very dense, thick, mature, virgin, untouched forest that has a trail through it that could have been an Indian trail because, don't forget, we are the watershed. We had Lenape Indians and all kinds of people here many, many years ago, and it could also have endangered species.
Mrs. Dixell, let me just ask you one quick question before you move on. If someone has decided to buy this, that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't buy it knowing there was a C1 stream designation. It doesn't mean...
It is not a C1, that's the trouble.
Okay.
Okay, the state dropped the ball.
Well, the state dropped...
Somebody dropped the ball, okay? Let me finish what I'm, okay? We are going, okay, let me finish. This C1 stops at West Farms Road. Villages, Burkerville, Freehold, Moore's Landing, not a C1. This C1, the maddest one, goes completely up through the villages. It goes absolutely through the villages, and the tributary, the Bannon Meadow Brook, is feeding and draining into the Manasquan. And it goes under Route 9 through to Moore's Landing, where it meets Du Bois Creek and the Long Brook. Okay? Yeah, let me finish. When the state classified the Manasquan River and its tributaries below West Farms Road to be a Category 1 river, they made the mistake and left a gap in the middle and did not include the villages, Moore's Landing, the Burkeville area of Freehold and Howell Township, as well as the Bannon Meadow Brook located on Route 9 North, which is a tributary and the headwaters to the Manasquan River and drains into it, as well as all other areas not included after the C1 designation stopped at West Farms Road. These areas must be added immediately, and the Manasquan River and all of its tributaries must be declared a C1 from end to end. Howell Township is the watershed and is the supplier of drinking water to many thousands of people in south central New Jersey. I have included the Howell Township stream map so that you can see how critical it is to have the Manasquan River to be a Category 1 from end to end. I've also included a copy of a letter that the Howell Environmental Commission was gracious enough to let me have. The Villages, a 34-year-old age-restricted community of 671 homes and more than 1,000 senior citizen residents, is located on Wyckoff Mills Road, Freehold, New Jersey, Howell Township. Located directly next to the villages, as well as running through the rear of the villages, is a vast area of mature, undisturbed, very dense, virgin woods and forests with thick underbrush that could very well be 200 years old. There is a trail from Route 9 through these woods that could have been an Indian trail as the Lenape Indians of Delaware came to hunt and fish due to the very fertile land and many waterways in Howell. There may also be endangered species in these woods. Located next to Dion's Tree Service and some small stores at the far end of this undisturbed forest, the Manasquan River actually runs through the forest and also runs through the entire village's property. Please refer to the tax map and the aerial photo map. Bannon Meadow Brook is a tributary to the headwaters of the Manasquan River and drains into it. The Manasquan runs under Route 9 and heads back toward Moore's Landing in Freehold, where it meets Du Bois Creek and the Long Brook. The Long Brook is also located not more than 2,000 feet from the driveway side of the villages. Enclosed within this package is 4 sets of photographs that I took, with each photograph numbered and attached to a sheet with explanations as to what they are. Referring to the tax map, lots 22 and 23, which is this virgin forest, including the Manasquan River that runs through it, is privately owned by someone who does not live in New Jersey and may not even know or care how critical a C1 waterway, especially the Manasquan River and its tributaries, is to the Manasquan Reservoir and our drinking water of for thousands of people. With this being said, our board vice president came upon a surveyor making this entire virgin, undisturbed, very old forest from Route 9 through the forest and along the inside of the village's border. The area, he was marking it, the surveyor was marking it. The area of this entire forest on Route 9 North is zoned HD1. However, under no conditions should these two lots, 23 and 24, ever be allowed to be sold and turned into some huge, noisy retail establishment or a hotel by a builder, real estate agent, or paid lobbyists, only out for profit and not giving one damn about any person turning on a water faucet in his or her home and not getting one drop of water to drink out of the faucet. For 34 years, the villages and this vast virgin forest, heavy with very large mature trees and underbrush, have protected each other. Our residents have been able to have a quality of life with peace and dignity. Thanks to this gentle forest being there and offering us protection along the entire 2.5-mile inner border of the villages. Governor Karzai, with all my heart and with every breath I take, I beg you to allow the more than 1,000 senior citizen residents of the villages to continue to live out our senior years with dignity and peace. I beg you with all my heart, never allow this probable 200-year-old forest to be sold and turned into a monster by builders, real estate agents, and lobbyists. And most important, fix the mistake that was made when our entire area was not included into the Category 1 designation. The Manasquan River and its tributaries must be a Category 1 from end to end. No ifs, ands, or buts. Tens of thousands of people in South Central New Jersey must have drinking water. Please do this by executive order upon reading this letter and reviewing the enclosed material. Respectfully, Barbara Dixon, resident of the Villages, County Committee Woman, the Villages. Now, I understand Freehold and Howell Township have resolutions and letters on file for C1 designation for upper portions of the Manasquan River, and the Watershed Commission has letters on file. If these two lots are ever sold, and I'm asking the township, and I mean it very seriously, to please protect this river in this area, the 300-foot buffer that was upheld by the court, and the tree border along the inside of the forest going the entire 2.5 miles of the inside of the villages. Okay, I'm open to anything anybody has to say.
Well, you actually have already said it. We as a town have already adopted a resolution supporting what you just spoke about, so.
Okay, well, I want you guys to do something. Now, Mrs. Schlegel, you said this went to the planning board, this owner went to the planning board? I need to know what that all is. And what does he want to build?
Mr. Nunziato, are you familiar with any applications being filed?
Because we were not notified.
No, there's nothing on file at this point. I actually did personally go out myself, and they did send a couple of pins for property markers.
Well, Lee just told me before this meeting that the owner has already been to the planning board and got sent out to go revise the project. So tell me what this is, because we don't know about it.
I don't know how to answer it.
Well, I don't know about it, so we need to know. We're directly affected.
Yeah, actually, I had spoken, someone in my office had spoken to the planning office. We may not have the correct lot and blocks because I didn't have that information, so.
I can comment on that.
Yeah, Bill really knows a little bit more information.
The application that was referred to your office was actually across the street for the Paradise Produce and the Woolies. It's not the lot 23 and 24. There's nothing on file for lot 23 and 24 currently.
Barbara, I'm sorry that there was that miscommunication.
The surveyor told my board vice president that this is what's for sale. The entire piece of this dense 200-year-old forest is marked off for surveyors, ribbons hanging, and halfway down the inside of the villages is marked. I want answers. I really want answers. Our lives are going to be destroyed.
Calm down.
I think what Mr. Nunziato was saying is that someone owns that property clearly. They've
Absolutely.
owned it for some while. They do have rights as a landowner
Absolutely.
to do certain things with their property.
Guess what?
Well,
It's a C1. They don't have rights. We have rights as citizens to have clean water, and if you turn on your faucet one of these days and nothing comes out, you can call this guy in Staten Island who owns the damn property and say, thanks for turning off my water.
Barbara, you've been to enough planning board meetings to know that we as a town are very protective of our lots. So right now, there's a property owner who has every right to survey his own property. There's no applications in process, and if and when they ever do actually put an application forward, they will have to abide by all the laws of the town.
Okay.
We have already adopted a resolution which you recognize in support of what you're doing. Beyond that, we can't really answer any more questions that you've asked.
Like I said, Jerry and I physically drove to Trenton this morning and handed this package to a governor's aide. After my husband's medical appointment in Morristown, we went to Trenton and then came here. We've had a busy day.
We love your passion. We really do.
Well, you know what?
But
I have devoted myself, just so that you understand, I have devoted myself to Howell Township. In all the years, I have always devoted my life to this town, every resident in it, and the villages.
we're on the same team.
Mrs. Dixon, I don't think
And
anyone
just for
is...
everyone to see,
Hold on
this is
one
the
second.
Howell Township stream map, so every one of you can
Talk
understand
into the mic,
that
Barb.
we are the watershed. Every one of you can understand how critical this is to us, our drinking water, our tributaries, and the water that flows in and helps us have drinking water.
Mrs. Dixell, I think what we can tell you is that there is no application on file. Landowners are entitled to have access to their property. You've given a letter to the governor. The state is the one that determines what's in the C1 waterway designation. We support all of the things the state has done with respect to C1 waterways. I would certainly ask Mr. Cherniatsky if you would please direct the planning office and the engineer's office to stay close on top of any interest, activity, phone calls, correspondence, anything at all related to this property. If you would immediately advise the members of the council and also let the appropriate trustees of the villages be aware, and Mrs. Dixell, of anything we hear at all. But just because it might be for sale...
I
doesn't
understand.
mean
It's
anything's
lot
happening.
23 and 24 for sale on Route 9 in this forest. I want to know,
Mrs.
lot
Dixell,
23 and 24.
There's no way we would know that, Mrs. Dixell.
If they were sent back to the planning board.
It's got, the
Okay.
town would have no way to know who
Okay,
is and who
so
is
what
not.
you can do as a council, a governing body, for the welfare of this township and for the welfare of the people drinking water in this town, send the governor's office another letter, and I'm not kidding, saying that it's time that this C1 got passed from end to end on the Manasquan River watershed so that this whole C1 is protected. Everything. And I really want that to go out, and I want a copy
Thank you
of
for
it.
your comment.
Thanks, Mrs.
I agree with you.
I'm not done yet. What's happening, Bill, what's happening with the pool at the new homes that have stopwork water?
Mr. Cherniatsky, could you...
This is a zoning enforcement matter, and I'm not sure it's appropriate to discuss in a public forum because it deals with an action that may be taken against a private property owner in terms of enforcement.
This was a planning board thing, Mr. Cherniatsky. It came up because I took photos and I questioned some guy in the new home that was putting in a pool that I thought was too close to 26A and B in the villages, and his top lot was in the buffer.
Mrs. Dixell, here's the answer to the zones. In light of what you've identified, it has to go to a code enforcement official.
It's already been there. They have to
It's
stop
been
work.
there, it goes out, and it's probably in the process of being adjudicated in some official capacity. So if we were to comment on it, while the homeowner has their rights and due process, we would certainly invalidate the fairness of that.
I'd be happy to tell you all,
Privately,
Okay,
you'll-
so I can expect a promise from you guys that a letter will go out to the governor.
Well, I don't know that we've given the
That-
promissory,
that
I'm
please-
certainly open for discussion.
I don't recall that resolution having
And I have
been
no
sent
problem
that
with-
long ago. How long ago did we send the resolution? Only a couple months ago.
We just sent them something in favor of it, about 2 months ago, in support of C1. In support of it, so we had sent
I
something to the
understand.
governor.
Okay, but like I said, I want to make sure that nobody dropped the ball, because I want to make sure that the state didn't drop the ball, and I'm going to call the governor's office and this aide I spoke to tomorrow morning, and I'm going to tell them to get on it, because I want to know if anything on Route 9 is for sale. That must be protected, because that C1 runs through that property. It's going to kill it.
We don't disagree with you, Mr. Dixell.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Mr. Brannan, welcome, sir. Come on down.
And just so you know, this is all for you guys.
Hand it over to Tom and
Yeah,
we'll get
okay, comments. Good evening, Mr. Brannan. Welcome. You just as always give us your name and address, please.
Jack Brannan, 16 Woodland Drive.
Says you'd like to talk about the Harms property.
There was an article today that very hard for us, and everybody just wants some questions answered, that's all.
Before let me just give you a general statement. I don't know anyone else in the council. I always saw about it when my wife called me work and said, did you know about this story in the Asbury Park Press? I had a habit of not particularly reading that paper with great frequency. And I had no idea what it was. Mr. Cherniatsky, I had reason to call the town hall, indicated me late here at night, said, what's about this story? This is someone who wants to do business in town, who would like to buy a piece of property in town. I know that Harms is of a size that might fit their needs, but I have no idea what they'd like to do with it. We certainly are not interested in selling the property. So this is just someone who's trying to make news and maybe find a home for themselves, but it's not been talked about officially, unofficially, ever by the town council. And Mr. Cherniatsky, if you could just maybe further elaborate on that.
Just for a matter of public record, what the mayor said is accurate, that first we heard about this was, we received a letter sort of the same day, or maybe just before. I guess they informed the media. We never even had a chance to meet as a group to even discuss what's being proposed. Having said that, just so you know, I'm completely out front about this, is the group that is proposing something actually did come to see me maybe
4 months ago.
3 or 4 months ago. Not about this property, but about, property in town where they could pursue something like this. But at no point was that ever discussed.
Yeah, that group originally wanted to and attempted to acquire the Vogel property on Fairfield Road, and we said to them, we're not brokers. We don't get in the middle of land acquisitions. If you'd like to buy it from the property owner, your best bet is to contact them.
I just felt that, I wanted to ask some questions because it looks like they approached Mr. Gannon. Your name got mentioned, I think, in the article a couple times, but there was nothing that you had made any commitment to, and I think it referred that anything would have to be brought up in front of the dais here to discuss.
Yeah, I feel that a general inquiry from a member of the press who actually gave me a scoop, because I was not aware of the correspondence that we had, we saw it today. And so I just answered some general questions in terms of what options there are and what would be legal or not legal, or what would you do with it. So it's really at its infant stage, and whether it goes to anything, it remains to be seen. But there was correspondence I see today that was delivered, but it's not out of the normal course of business to receive inquiries all the time. This one happened.
But nobody officially has approached anybody on council or the management of the town.
They did come meet with myself, Councilman Tabasco, about 4 months ago.
4 months, but not about farms.
Town manager about the project.
Right.
Never at any time was any property spoken to.
Prior to that, they asked about the Vogel property.
Yeah.
And we told them, call the owner. We don't own the property.
And they had a realtor present. So one of my questions was, you have a realtor here with you. You're looking for property to do the project, that's the person you should be speaking to, not to us.
Okay.
That was 4 months ago. We knew nothing about it again. I heard nothing about it again until I opened the paper this morning.
It just sort of caught me off guard, like, farms, what's going on?
Deputy Mayor, you have a comment?
Yeah, just not actually in response to your question, but just general comments about another entity, sports-oriented, wanting to come to Howell. And it's actually a very positive sign. We've had a number of entities approach us over the last several years.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just, let me finish. About farms. That's what caught me off guard with it.
Let me just finish. We had the soccer people come here a few years back. We had the Olympic skating ring people who wanted to build a training facility here. I know it's shocking to some people, but we are a target town. Within 20 miles of Howell are 1 million people. All right, we have the Jersey Shore. We have one of the most major theme parks in America. We have Philadelphia. If you drive it, it's 67 miles by car to Center City, Philly. It's 52 miles to Center City, Manhattan by car. So we are a very well-targeted area by major organizations. So this is not the first time a major organization wants to come here. They did meet with Bobby and I 4 months ago to talk about what they want to do as an entity. They want to build a Cooperstown-style baseball complex in Howell Township to attract major tournaments to this area. They will still ping us, and there will be others that will come in the future. Howell is a well-wanted town for organizations such as this.
Again, I'm not opposed to it. I just, when it referenced that piece of land, I was like, what?
Well, we all saw for the first time the article today.
Okay.
And there is a letter of package today also.
I haven't even gotten a chance.
But probably nobody saw it until this evening.
Anything else, Mr. Brennan?
Yes, I asked actually 2 meetings ago. They started marking out Woodland Drive, Crest, and Rustic at the northern end of the development. There's been additional markings in the road now. They've marked out water, they've marked out sewer, they've marked out gas, and I've asked actually Mr. Kineski's office, and I think you were going to try to get back to me a couple of weeks ago. And I know you're busy, but I have yet to receive a call back on why they're marking the road out. Usually when they mark a road out, they're going to open the road.
Mr. Chancellor, can you give any update? I'm certainly not aware of.
I don't have anything now, Bill, are you familiar with this project?
Well, that's not necessarily true that you have to do a markout to open the road. There are times when a developer wants to tie into a road or something to that effect, and they call for utilities so that they can show the existing utilities in the roadway, maybe how they're going to be connected or extended. But to my knowledge, that we certainly haven't done it. I mean, there would be possibly a record on the utility call-out number, but there are other occasions where that does happen.
First they marked out sewer a couple of weeks ago, now they've marked out water, now they've marked out gas. Like if it generally, when you see that progression, it keeps progressing a lot of times I've noticed, where they're either looking at, like you said, extending a line, or maybe increasing the size of the line. And I'm just curious because, like I said, I asked the question, and I realize people are busy, but hopefully we can get an answer.
Where's this at, Mr. Brown?
It's at the corner of Woodland, Crest, and Rustic on the north end of the development.
Mr. Junaski, if you can, through Mr. Nunziato or someone, have to find out what we can find out about why this is being marked, we can contact the utilities and ask them if they know of anything. I think we've got Mr. Brannon's, I know it's on the sheet here, his contact information, if we can get reply to him as soon as possible.
I just find it odd somebody would mark a road out for no reason at all, because the only parcel of land that attaches to that north end of the development is the parcel of land that's we're talking about a lot.
So you're comfortable, it's not just somebody wanting to add like opt-on line to their house and all the things?
Oh, no, I mean, when you see, PVC 10-inch flow rate, marked out in blue on the street, that's water. And you see flow direction in a sewer line. I mean, somebody's doing some research for some reason.
If I just make it a little bit more, what normally happens is all the utility companies are contacted, whether it be water, gas, sewer, cable, phone, they all do their own markings, all in their own individual colors. And I mean, it could be actually something as simple as putting a stop sign, a road sign. I mean, if you want to do something that simple, you would be required to call for markout, or every single one of them would be identified.
Did anyone else give us permission to mark up the roads? Now they can just come and do it whenever?
Correct.
And we know nothing about, we've heard nothing at all.
As a matter of fact, our utility company, the sewer department, is contacted to mark out our utilities.
But no one has to come to the town, any town in New Jersey, and say.
No, you just call the 1-800 number and give a location.
So we don't have to be made aware.
They have equal access to the right of way.
And like I said, I'm just curious on what, you see everything being marked out, you wonder what's going on.
It's a good question.
We'll certainly get an answer for you, Mr. Brown.
That's all, thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, next we have on the agenda is the public hearing on the Open Space Trust Fund with the Freewood Acres Neighborhood Park, Smith Street. And there's a list of individuals who've indicated right up front they'd like to be heard on this. I'm going to read their names out, and obviously anyone in addition who'd like to be heard on this, certainly we'll invite everyone to come forward. If I pronounce any of the names incorrectly, I apologize. Reginald, resident. Jane Fulton, I guess it's just Reginald and it has next to it resident. So Reginald, I don't know your last name, but they have it here as resident.
Pardon me, Mayor, I apologize. I think we have to open a public hearing.
Okay, I'm going to do that. I just want to give everyone a sense of what we're going to do. Jane Fulton Rivera, Nelson Rivera, Jason Weinstein, Lillian Watson, Lucille Tangway, Kerry Williams. Anyone else here who'd like to be heard, just raise your hand. Okay, we'll get to everyone. I'm going to ask a member of the council, please make a motion to open the meeting to the regular session, please.
Motion to go into regular session. Need a second.
We need a second, please.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any remarks on opening the meeting to the public? Regular session, please. Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malave?
He's absent in the chamber right now.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right, what I'd like to do is turn this over at this time to Mr. Cherniatsky. He's going to give some background and some explanation, and then we'll get into the public hearing. Mr. Cherniatsky, take it away.
Yes, Mayor, a few months ago, the Recreation Advisory Committee sponsored a community workshop for the Freewood Acres neighborhood with the help of some very active residents. Mr. Williams, I don't know if he's here, who has really has helped spearhead this effort. So our gratitude to him. Essentially, Freewood Acres Park is a 23-acre parcel off of Smith Road. It has 6.8 acres of usable land. We have just recently acquired, or in the process of acquiring, a small piece of property to finish that acquisition to provide additional parking. But in the interim, while we're working on that, we have what is planners often called a charrette, or a community workshop. Approximately 20 residents participated in this workshop, broke up into small groups, and they did a mapping exercise as to how this park ought to look. And we did something called a photo survey, where we ran about 100 different park images, and we had the residents independently score the images on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being the most negative, 10 being the most positive score. We took all their input, we did a policy questionnaire, we scored the images, and we pulled out the most positive images and called the residents back and explained how we laid out a park based on their mapping exercises and their photo surveys. And that has now resulted in what we are submitting as a grant application to the Monmouth County Open Space Program. So it was a wonderful process. We really enjoyed working with the neighbors and the Recreation Advisory Committee. The results are included in your packet if you want to see those. And our deputy manager has been working very diligently in preparing the grant application. So I'll ask her to comment on some of the specifics in terms of what we're asking for.
Great.
We had an estimate, a cost estimate from a consulting engineer of $165,000. In addition to that, adding a memorial and a few other amenities, the total amount for the project cost is $171,000. We are requesting from the Monmouth County Municipal Open Space Grant application, we're requesting $82,000.
So our total project is 162, we know that.
About 171.
171, right?
And we're asking for
82.
Right.
We couldn't ask for the whole amount?
We can only ask for 50% of the engineer's cost.
Okay. Mr. Janeski, anything else that you need to add? And then we're going to proceed, obviously, in expectation of getting grant funds, but in the absence of getting this grant, we're going to proceed. I believe at least 150 was put in the budget 2 years ago.
That's correct, and we now have a very solid sense of what the residents would like to see that park developed for. So you're correct, the council has put money aside for that. We now have a plan, and that the neighborhood has endorsed, and that the Recreation Advisory Committee has endorsed, and there's a letter there endorsing it. And now we can start executing on it.
Mr. Malave is absent in chambers, but he, in particular, Mr. Williams, were very instrumental in really taking this from an idea and carrying the flag on this. So we're grateful for Mr. Malave for bringing it up, and we know Mr. Williams is really, in many respects, initiated through your efforts. So we're grateful for your vision and your leadership in the community as well, and getting us to the point where we're at.
I'm sorry, because I don't want to forget anyone. Also, Mr. Zigpanik was very instrumental in helping us move forward as well.
You're absolutely right. It's appropriate he also be recognized. I think Mr. Panic was originally out there with Mr. Williams and put a tremendous amount of time into it. Ms. Flaherty, I see you're here, and I know you're the chair of the Rec Advisory Committee. It's not to put you on the spot. Is there anything you'd like to mention to us first as the chairperson of the Rec Advisory? You're not certainly obligated to do so, but I wanted to acknowledge your presence. Not necessary? Okay. Okay. All right, well then we'll get right to the public hearing, Mr. Chesky, unless there's anything else. Okay. Reginald, I don't know your last name if you're here. You are. Well, come on up, Mr. Williams.
Town hall.
Okay. Oh, my God. Oh, gee. We appreciate your getting over and apologize for any mix-up. Mr. Williams, if you wouldn't mind, we just need you to give us your official name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Kerry Williams. I reside at 165 West 6th Street in Howell. I've been in Howell for almost 42 years. I've been here.
Wow.
Pretty much a long time.
Thank you. So, Ms. Williams, you have any comments, in favor, concerns, issues with respect to this particular project?
Well, basically, like Tom said, the process of what we did to get it up and running was a very good process where we got the individuals together, we all sat down, and we kind of like pick and choose what we want. But there are some concerns that we do have through Field Acres, and I just wanted to just bring up some of those concerns to you guys this evening. The first question was, I know you had a dollar amount, was it going to be 179,000 or something?
171.
We had some concerns about how the money was going to be used. So originally when we did this project through Bill and through most of the people from the town, we were saying that most of these things we were going to try to do within our own house, as in having people from the individuals from the town do this work for us, i.e. basketball courts, paving, those things like that. But through some of our meetings that I've attended through Elaine, she said she wanted to get a consultant, and she also wanted to entertain having some of these things being vetted out through other people to do. And my position of that is, if we can do it within house and save our money within house, we the people from the town of Howell and from Field Acres would like for our park to be built by members of the town. Not so much people spending money, us spending our money, $179,000, to go to somebody who might charge us $55,000 to go one basketball court.
Agreed.
That's what they come to money.
Mr. Giuliani, can you comment on the use of the resource?
Well, we're balancing two needs. One is, as much as we would like to do many of those things, resources are sometimes a constraint. We're not always available to do that. So we are going to phase this out in such a way where we can maximize our in-house resources, but at the same time, I think we're starting to test the patience of Mr. Williams and other residents who really want to see this project start moving forward. So some things can be done quickly and better and can be guaranteed through the bidding process to be done while we commit other resources to things that aren't necessarily time sensitive, like maybe doing the paths, doing some of the clearing, whereas there's asphalt and stuff is only available certain periods of time, and those things we might get out.
So in your view, to Mr. Williams' point, it's a good one. Is there any way that we could do anything else differently to bring down the cost or to shave off money as to have our own employees participate in some fashion?
It's really going to be a matter of how much money we get from the grant. And if we get the grant, then we'll have a lot more flexibility. If we don't, then we're going to have to do that anyway.
Okay. So if we get the grant, Mr. Williams, half the project gets.
I understand that too, sir. But my position was, when we originally found the land, we had two sides of the land. We had the original part, which was like 6-7 acres that was going to be developed, and then on the other side of that map, there was also some available space that we had talked about back then that we were going to reserve maybe down the road to have that other part of that land developed for open space. Where when we did the plan, they've already within the plan that basically through the committee, and I would just want to put on the record as in the committee, the recreation committee. I've only met the recreation committee one time, me personally, and that was at the meeting where we did the actual presentation for the people that came and said what was going to be offered. But prior to that, I didn't know anything about the recreation committee being in this town, to be honest with you. But it's nothing against the committee. But we know what we need in 3 acres, and we know what we need to do there. And for us, it's been 3.5 going on 4 years, so our patience aren't thin at this point. Whatever we get, we want to get what we get. But we basically would like to request through council and through you is that, and I requested this through the last meeting, that we establish a committee of individuals with myself, Juan, Bill, Elaine, if she needs to be part of it, Tom, to where we can spearhead the process of how these steps are going to be taken or what's being done. Because basically we go to the meeting, we get the information, and that's where it's left. And then it's kind of like stuff is out there. And then we have another meeting. Now we're here for this day, we're going to get a grant. We just want to have some individuals involved within the community, including myself, to where we have a committee to know each step of what the timelines are being done for this. This was originally Juan fought for this space with us. He fought the night of that meeting when we first got the space allotted to us. He made a comment how bad we needed it in the community, and we talked about other things and how, like the deputy mayor
place for everybody who wants to come move, but we're in just a small little portion of Howell. We're in Freewood Acres. And out of all the other areas, I want to make things for the record, in Howell Township, Freewood Acres is the only development that doesn't have a park. You go anywhere else, there's a park. And I know through our resources, what we have in Howell, with those men that cleared that land off originally, I know we have the resources right in Howell to build this park for us in Howell. And we have Ziggy Panic, like you said, he's a consultant, he builds parks, he does Shade Tree, he's very experienced in those areas. And for somewhere, some of these individuals that started initially not in the loop of developing this park now. They've been in the loop as being invited to the meetings and being part of the process, but they're not in the loop as developing a part in the process. And I want to have a committee develop that we're all in the same loop of what's going on, basically, if that's possible.
Mr. Judeski, what are your thoughts on initially?
I just want to mention that the grant needs to be in by the 20th, 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, in order to do the grant, this is the process when you apply for the Monmouth County Open Space Grant. You need to get a cost estimate from a professional engineer as to what the cost of the project would be. If we're going to get grant money, you need to pass a resolution tonight to approve the application of the grant. And I can just give you a little bit of a timeline here that, may help you out. Fall of 2006, which is this fall right now, we plan on doing some more site clearing, begin excavating and grading, clear the trail and prepare for surfacing. If we need to start that in-house, obviously with the money that's already been budgeted in the 2005 capital budget, that's what we would do. The spring of 2007, we plan to fertilize and seed the open green area, begin on the amenities. Hopefully, we acquire the grants the summer of 2000, the beginning of the summer of 2007. We would finish the amenities and parking, and we would open the park in middle to late summer of next year.
Not to be facetious, and I'm respectful of all these timelines, but it sounds like we could build Central Park faster than this. And please don't take that the wrong way.
All we need to do is just build one basketball court, do the track, and make some area for the kids in Freewood Acres. This is 3 years, and we're talking 2007.
It's 3 years. The capital budget was put in 2005, was the money allocated. So you know how the capital works. And so obviously what needs to be done is everything needs to be done properly, and it needs to be a process. And unfortunately, sometimes the process takes a little longer than we would like. But we want to be sure that it's built correctly, that it's there forever, and we want to get it open. Believe me, we want to get it open as soon as possible.
Well, what about the board is talking about minds getting together, speak from the neighborhoods? They can be the vocal point, because other people, I'm sure, are asking.
Every day they're asking.
Yeah, we had spoke about this. The Recreation Committee will be, get together a committee from the residents, and they will be the lead on the committee. And I think we should...
And I'd like to comment on that. And that's my position with the Recreation Committee. I don't have a problem with the Recreation Committee because I know they represent the recreation in Howell, and I'm from Howell, and I know recreation is booming in Howell. And it's not so much from the committee, it's from all those other organizations, Pop Warner, basketball, Mid-Monmouth, you name them. They're all going on in Howell, and they're not part of, quote unquote, the Recreation Committee. They're part of their own individual entity. But my position is that I can't see how the Recreation Committee can be the committee for Freewood Acres Park when we live in Freewood Acres Park and we want the residents of Freewood Acres Park to be part of this committee.
No, the residents of Freewood Acres Park are going to be part of the committee, but the Recreation Advisory Committee is going to organize that committee. There needs to be representatives from the township, and that's one of the missions of the Recreation Advisory Committee.
So what it will be the communications between the Recreation Advisory Committee and the people from the town to ensure that we get proper information, because you were supposed to provide me with a, from our last meeting, with some type of a survey that I was supposed to take to the people from Freewood Acres to sign, so we can submit with this grant, so we can show that, we had a participation of individuals. You were going to have this typed up through the Recreation Committee, and those individuals were supposed to get you that survey, but I have not yet seen that survey.
No, I have to disagree with you, Mr. Williams. I did get a letter of support from the Recreation Committee for the grant, and we had spoke about the residents of the Freewood Acres community writing a letter of support. There's no survey.
I thought we were gonna do some type of, something where people were gonna sign and that we were gonna submit with the grant to say that people were part of this process.
The point is that we need to demonstrate for the application that the public was involved, that they supported. So, you know, any letters we can receive, any petitions that could be circulated would be fine, and your testimony here supporting it is...
Oh, I support it. I mean, we're the founders of it. I mean, I'm not gonna go against something that I've been fighting for the last 3.5 years, but to put it back on the Recreation Committee, because you say we need a focal point of some people from the town to represent the committee. We can have somebody like Juan be the person who's the focal point. We can have someone like Bill, or we can have someone like that appointed to do that. We don't have to necessarily have the Recreation Committee do this.
Okay, it will be organized, and we will have a steering committee.
That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, Mr. Williams, there's going to be a committee, you're going to be a part of it, other people from the neighborhood are. Mr. Malave happens to be the liaison to the Recreation Committee, he goes to the meetings, and this just allows us to make sure that people involved in rec across the whole town are aware of all of the things that are happening.
I understand.
So that's really the only reason we'll do it through that. You will be involved every step of the way.
We're just, time is ticking, that's the only thing, and here it is, another year got by us again, and we're still where we were, besides the ground being cleared, and that there's a little clearing that went on there, but the clock is ticking every day.
But you heard Helene say that September 20th is the deadline date, so
I think the other
tonight there'll be action, and we'll move it along the next step.
The other thing, Mr. Williams, is that there was some extra property, you should know, that we needed
Yeah,
to
we
acquire.
acquired that.
And that took some time. We had to make sure we did that because we couldn't put the park in without making sure that was lined up, because it would have really inconvenienced a particular resident.
That's true.
So that did take us some time to negotiate a price and to negotiate a settlement. And that took some time and engagement. But just because I think it would help the public record, since we're having a hearing, we're trying to build a case to the county. It sounds like you are in favor of the project, you wanted to proceed.
Oh, for sure. Everybody in the town is in favor of the project, and we all want to see, just like you guys wanted to.
Absolutely.
Just like you wanted. You said you made it a priority. When Tom came and he said you had made this a priority to have this, one of these things take off and work out. And I mean, just like I said, I'm beating the drum here, but you know, when's our park coming? Even if we have a basketball court or a tennis court or something that the kids can just come off the streets and go do. It doesn't take a whole lot of money to be spent.
I think that was a yes,
to
though,
do
right?
that.
That's a yes.
Yes, a yes.
All right.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who, thank you, Mr. Williams, we
Thank you.
appreciate all your help on this. Anyone, Mr. Worcester, you raised your hand, do you want to comment on this? Come on down, sir. Oh, you didn't? I'm sorry. Anyone else who would like to be heard?
I can't go down there.
I don't know that the recording can pick you up.
Yes, yeah.
We'll bring you a wireless mic.
I just can't get down there again.
Mayor, while that's in transit, I was just commenting, we are much closer now than we were before. Not only did we not have that piece of property, but frankly, we didn't have a plan. We didn't have a scale plan that showed what would fit, where the wetlands are, and we needed to go through that process. And I think we've made terrific strides in the past few months.
Correct. Ready, Barb?
Yes, Mayor, I just have one comment to make. It's a wonderful plan. I understand it takes time. But if there's a way and there's a slight clearing, and you know what these portable basketball things are, people put on their driveway, these big things, can the township buy a couple of these portable basketball units, and these kids will have level playing between now and behind the village park?
I think the honest answer is Mrs. Dixell, unless it's clear to grade, we put in basketball courts in a temporary, God forbid someone got hurt, how will we care for them? We want to get this done as fast as anybody else.
I just thought maybe.
Good point, we just got to make sure we do it right, we do it safe.
Give them one or two basketball hoops that these kids could.
So you should ask if you agree, and is there something we can do on a portable basis?
Yeah, that's going to be the instructions.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
All right, I just thought maybe.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dixell. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on this particular, Mr. Pritchard? Welcome, sir, come on down. Anyone else after Mr. Pritchard?
Hello, Jeff.
Hi.
Mr. Pritchard, just give us your name and address, please.
Jeff Pritchard, 21 Poplar Street. I just wanted to congratulate everyone on this project. I think it's a terrific project, and I live in the Rampart section of Howell, and I talked to the people in close to us, but we still support it. We think it's a terrific project. We want to thank Ziggy and the residents there for a great brainstorm for this whole project. It was really inspiring. I just wanted to thank everybody involved.
Thank you. We appreciate that. All right, last call. Anyone who'd like to be heard on this issue? Okay, I'm going to close the public portion for the hearing on this particular matter. I would ask a member of the council to please make a motion introducing a resolution in support of the project, specifically the total amount of $171,000, of which we're applying for an $82,000 grant.
Mayor, I motion that we do exactly what you just said, approve the grant application. It's for a total of $171,123, with $82,000 of that being grant funds.
We have a motion. We need a second, gentlemen.
Second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additional comments from administration or council? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right. Appreciate everyone's time and consideration on that point. I believe next on the agenda we have Resolution 5E, which is a litigation settlement. Mr. Czerniecki and/or Mr. Gannon, I'll turn it over to you to please initiate the dialogue on this item.
Yes, Mayor, you have a resolution in front of you that was prepared by my office in conjunction with Mr. Kress's office and special counsel on this project and this proceeding, which was commonly known as the Hurley FEL industrial site. As you know, there's been many proceedings in the bankruptcy court with regard to this property, back taxes, and the environmental liability. I think at this point we have discussed it and closed. I'll ask Mr. Kress if he wants to make a short presentation with regard to the highlights regarding this this settlement, which will, at least in my opinion, be a fair and equitable settlement, and will get an immediate result in terms of some back taxes to the municipality, and will hopefully return the property to economic viability. But Mr. Kress, you can identify yourself and give the mayor and council and the public the benefit of your knowledge with regard to this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Gannon, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the entire council. We have met on many occasions in an effort to bring a closure to what has been a difficult, at times, chapter for the township. I think we have found a very positive resolution which achieves a lot of the goals of the township that we started out with here. Just for the record, I'm here. My name is Alex Kress. I'm an attorney with Wright Binns and Highland Freddie LLP in Morristown. We have been retained as special litigation counsel to the township with respect to this matter. The gentleman to my left is a representative of the proposed purchaser. The initial bidder for this property was a gentleman by the name of Joel Hoffman, and the current owner of the property under that bid is an entity called Hurley Fells, F-E-L-E-S 1 LLC. Mr. Christopher Healy, from the Backgate Wagner firm is here. I'm not sure whether he will need to make any comments, but.
Good evening, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Mr. Kress, why don't you take us through the highlights of this proposed settlement?
Certainly. There are two elements to the settlement. At this point, there are two basic settlements that are being accomplished. Just for background, the owner of this property, WBH Howell LLC, the original owner, has been in bankruptcy since the early part of 2000. Taxes have been unpaid on this property to the township since sometime in late 1999, I believe, certainly by early 2000. And the bankruptcy has been a long and drawn-out process at which there were various bids and offers, ultimately which were rejected. Eventually, a bankruptcy plan was confirmed by Judge Ferguson, the bankruptcy judge presiding over the matter. That plan provided for an auction sale of the property, which took place initially in February of this year. At that time, some
somewhat to everybody's surprise, there was only one bidder for the property, and that bidder offered $1 million for the property. The township's taxes at the time were substantially in excess of $1 million, due through December 31, 2005. Under the bankruptcy process, the taxes were limited to the recovery was limited to the value of the property. Through the negotiation process, as a result of various objections that were interposed during the bankruptcy case by my office, and in settlement of certain litigation that was brought challenging the assessed value of this property. And for the record, I believe the assessed value is in the neighborhood of in excess of $12 million to $13 million. It's somewhere in that range. So the problem with the property is, as the council is well aware, and the residents may be as well, is that it was subject to substantial environmental contamination and issues which needed to be remediated and resolved. One of the township's concerns was making sure that would happen. Under the sale, Mr. Hoffman is being required, or his entity is being required to pay a substantial bond to provide for the cleanup of the property. He has signed an order with the DEP that requires his entity to clean up the property. That process will take some time. Mr. Hoffman's initial bid, as I said before, was $1 million. Through the negotiation process, Mr. Hoffman agreed to increase the total purchase price of the property to $1,560,000. And based on that number, in excess of $1,000,001 will come to the township immediately upon the bankruptcy court entering the order approving the settlement, which we expect will happen within the next couple of weeks, certainly by early October. And in addition, Mr. Hoffman's entity will be posting the 2006 taxes in the amount of $30,000. That is the appropriate number based on the value of the property, based on the adjustments that are implicit in the tax rate in the township of Howell at this time. The entity will also pay the same amount for 2007.
Excuse me, you have technical difficulties are about to understand. Hold your comment. No, why don't we get 2 minute recess if you want to move?
Would you mind if we stop you at this point?
Just take 2 minutes.
Okay, we'll take a 2-minute recess. All right, folks, if I could just get your attention, please. We're going to resume the meeting. All right, we have in front of us Township Council's Special Counsel, Mr. Alex Kress. He is here talking about the Hurley Industrial Site and a settlement, and a gentleman named Chris Healy, who's also a counsel representing the property owner or purchaser, so to speak. Mr. Kress, if you could just briefly cover the items you had already gone into, and then we'll get right to the balance of your session.
Absolutely. Just to go back a minute, in essence, the situation here is that you have a property that has not paid taxes in a substantial amount of time, and you have a bankruptcy proceeding in which the tax assessments have been challenged. You have a post-bankruptcy proceeding challenging the tax assessment for the township, all of which could have resulted in a substantial reduction in the recovery by the township. As a result of these settlements, there are 2 settlements, one with Mr. Hoffman, in which he is increasing his bid for the property from $1 million to $1,560,000, and a second one with Lehman Brothers, in which they have agreed to accept a small portion of the total principal amount or purchase price on account of their claims in the bankruptcy and their attempts to challenge and undermine the tax claims of this township. You are going to have a total of in excess of $1,100,000 that will be paid to the township on account of the back taxes. You will have current taxes going forward at the rate of $30,000 per year for this year and the following year. In the meantime, Mr. Hoffman and his entity will be developing and improving the property, bringing it back to marketability and active use. As the council of the township is probably well aware, this property has not been substantially occupied for many years as part of the reason for the tax periods. And it is the hope under the settlement that Mr. Hurley They are willing and have agreed to live by the existing zoning. That was a substantial issue for the township. And as I said before, they are willing and will be cleaning up the property so that the township will not have the potential stigma of having unclean and contaminated property within its boundaries. So as a result of that, both my firm and Mr. Gannon, who were actively involved in all the negotiations here, have recommended the settlement to the Township Council. And I think Mr. Gannon has prepared a resolution which recites many of the facts that I've gone through. I'm willing to answer any questions the council members have or the public.
Before we entertain any questions from the public, Mr. Malave, I'll start with you. Any questions or observations?
Can you hear me?
No.
I don't really have any questions, Mr. Mayor. I do have a comment, just basically that I think it's something that this proposal, it's a good serving for the township. It's not all of the tax monies that was we felt was owed to us. However, there was no guarantees that we were going to ever be able to collect that all of those dollars that was owed to us, that we felt was owed to us. So it's about time that we collect some money from this property. This property we haven't been able to collect a dime in excess of 7 years. What this does is it finally settles it. No more legal fees, hopefully, after a couple of weeks from now. We still love you, Alex, nothing personal.
Understood.
And it puts it back in the payroll, so to speak, in the tax payroll, I meant. So I think it's a fair deal. I want to thank Alex and his firm and Mr. C and Jeffrey, Mr. Filiatro, and everybody that was involved, Mr. Gannon, for coming this far. I think it's a fair deal for the township, and we appreciate all your efforts. I also want to thank the purchaser for working with us and understanding our situation as a community. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Levy. Deputy Mayor Tabasco will write down.
Juan actually said just about everything. I will again thank a lot of the people that were involved. It isn't a perfect solution, but it's perfect for us at this point. It does bring back onto the tax rolls properties that have not been on the rolls for a long period of time. And secondly, I think there was a big scare there for a while that this was going to become some huge residential community, and it's all going to be commercial property, which is nice. And I don't see anybody from Farmingdale here. I don't see Mr. Morgan or anybody else. And I would ask.
It's coming. Should raise their hand.
No, I mean the township officials or borough officials. So I would ask that. Well, anyway, Tom, I would ask that anything that happens tonight be communicated to that town. It's been an eyesore, I'm sure, for them for a lot of years, being around the top of Farmingdale. So I'm sure they're going to be happy to hear that it's back on our tax roll. It will be an active property. It isn't a residential community, so we should communicate all those facts to Farmingdale.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, just to add that, if I may, most importantly to me anyways, and I'm sure to particularly the Farmingdale residents, that site's going to finally be cleaned up. And that's an important issue. That's something that we took into account when we accepted the settlement, is that this property is going to finally be cleaned up and hopefully prevent any harm from being done to the local residents there.
Okay, Councilman Walsh, any comments?
I'd like to thank everybody that was involved. I personally met with Mr. Cresta Trenton for the hearings and did the best we could under the circumstances that were presented us. We weren't the prettiest of circumstances. A piece of land that was contaminated, no money coming to the town for many, many years. I know the residents were very upset last year. At least there's progress. There's solutions being started, but it will be a process. It's our job to monitor it well, make sure the sites get cleaned up. For the record, it is zoned right now commercial.
I believe it's light industrial.
It is currently
It's
industrial.
Special economic district 1 or 2. I'm not sure which one it
It is zoned in a way that does not allow residential development of any kind, and the new master plan that we are discussing also would not even make it conditional to allow residential there. So only commercial / industrial would be allowed on that property under current zoning, and also based on what the planning board has presented to the governing body.
Okay, we'll be discussing that pretty soon, that part of the master plan.
Yeah, there's a whole schedule
I think,
that,
I don't know on the schedule where it is, Mr. Triansky, but commercial and SEDs.
I don't believe that's the next round of ordinances. It'd be perhaps in November that we look at that part of the master plan.
Anything else, Mr. Wolf?
No. Again, I'd just like to thank Alex Kress. I felt very informed on what was going on all over the process. That's because I think you did a very good job of relaying to us what was going on from all different sides. And I really do appreciate that. It helped me to try to serve the people of Howell as best as I could. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, and thank you to the entire council. It was my pleasure to represent the township. As always, we would have liked to recover more. I think we did recover the best we could under the circumstances, and I thank everybody for their participation in the process. Just for completeness of the record, I want to make 2 points. There is an element of the settlement, which I may have neglected to mention as we switch tapes there, which is that there is a proposed subdivision of the lots in the settlement, and that subdivision is actually in a large way beneficial to the township because it will allow, as each area is cleaned up, that area to be brought onto the tax rolls more quickly than if the entire area or lots that are overlapped and not fully clean were left under those conditions. But the subdivision is consistent with the current building footprints and would not change any of the usage within the footprints as I understand it from the township planner we've all spoken with on that one.
The only comments I'll just make, this has gone on for a while. We all inherited this because the landowner went into bankruptcy. And they were entitled to certain protections, and it took quite a while to get to the point where we're at. But there's a couple of key things that also need to be emphasized. Because the property is contaminated, many residents in our own community who live behind the property have been very concerned about water quality and the potential plume in the ground. And so that was really our primary motivation among getting the tax dollars back, was to address the environmental aspect. And based on the deal that we've structured, the property is going to finally get cleaned. And that's a very, very serious issue for us in protecting the people that have a water supply that is directly engaged with this particular piece of property. The $1,100,000 is very significant for this town. That's a tremendous amount of top-line revenue that will come into the municipality. That absent our restructuring this deal, the landowner had only put up $1 million. So to the credit of our negotiating team, we were able to get them to increase the price in spite of the fact that they didn't have to $1.5 million. And that's very significant for us because it has increased the amount of dollars we've been able to get. We held firm. There were many nights in closed session where it was very serious. You could cut the tension with a knife around the direction we were giving our attorneys in terms of where we were going to hold the line. And our team really did a tremendous job in getting that price increased. And I think the fact that they're now on the tax rolls going forward and paying money like everyone else is absolutely significant. And to your point, the property gets cleaned, and as it does, by subdividing it, we'll actually have live industry and business back in that location much more quickly as a function of the subdivision. So this really appears to be a win for the community and a heck of a lot of revenue that our taxpayers deserve to get put back in the municipal coffers. Is there anything else, Mr. Kress, we need to do officially? Any comments we need to read into the record?
I don't think so. There would just be the resolution that Mr. Gannon has prepared. There were a couple of typographical errors in it, but I don't know how to...
Are any of those, Mr. Gannon, substantial enough to warrant corrections?
No, you spelled special counsel.
We spelled special counsel wrong? Okay.
Charlie, you want to add anything before we go?
Into the
Yeah.
Nothing,
You
Mr.
read the
Clear?
resolution and,
Resolution reflects your understanding of the settlement through your law firm and representative of the property owner.
Yes, it does.
All right, are there any final comments from council? Okay, I would ask that a member of the council please introduce the resolution authorizing the settlement agreement.
So moved.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second, any final remarks? Okay, hearing none, roll call please.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco.
Aye.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mayor DeBella.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your time.
Thank
Great
Thank
event.
you. Thank you.
All right, there is no additional official business on the agenda, albeit there were some folks who went to town hall in a mix-up with regard to where the meeting tonight would be. And so I want to recognize and acknowledge some of the folks that were there thinking that we would be there. So a few folks have put their name down. If there's anyone that didn't have a chance to put their name down and would like to be heard, we certainly welcome you to come forward. The first person, I may pronounce it wrong, Michael Leninger. Did I get that right? Leninger. Welcome, Mr. Leninger. Come on down. It says you'd like to talk about Colts Neck Road and the Route 33 development. If you would, just as a formality, give us your name and address for the official record. Hold that microphone, I suppose.
I think we turned off the mic, so we need to turn that on.
There's a button on the top. You slide the button curly.
Michael Monitor, 8 Carlton Boulevard.
Welcome.
It's in regard to the Carlton Home Developments, I believe it is. And you probably went over some of the points, but with the watershed. My question is that in 1999, Asbury Park Press had an article that we stopped building the Route 33 bypass there because of the bog turtles. They're on the endangered species. They're also registered with the New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife as an endangered species in, I believe, federally in 1974. So if we weren't smart enough to build the road, we're smart enough not to build the road through there, how are we letting a gentleman come in and build 500 houses on top of it?
Let me just start by saying I'm completely unobjective on this issue because I'm dead set against the 500 houses. I think the applicant is a less than reputable individual, not Carlton, and I think this entire thing is a disgrace and a debacle. And I'm embarrassed for the community that that application was allowed to proceed, particularly with all the shenanigans that went on when it's still under investigation by the county prosecutor in terms of how all this happened. So having said that, I'm with you, but the problem is they went to the planning board, they had a formal hearing, they made an application, the town council at the time passed a resolution allowing those homes to be an eligible zone. They took it from highway development and allowed it to become residential. They made an application in the planning board because they then became compliant once the zone was in place and they received their approvals. They are still subject to certain regulatory things that they need to comply with. But unfortunately, they received, in my judgment, an illegitimate approval, but unfortunately, they got an approval.
Well, let me just interject one thing there, though, that the planning board did do their due diligence. They're not building within the bog. So given the set of application docs that were presented in front of them, they had to do what they did as a jurisdiction, which was if it fit within those requirements, and that they had to approve, which they did at that point.
Once the town council, back at the time, and none of the four of us here were on the council at the time, in fairness, but once they changed the zoning, it then became permissible for them to build this project in that particular area. And so they made application, Deputy Mayor is right, they're building in a space that apparently isn't wet.
They're not building in the bog.
Well, according to the article, it's a 2.5-mile stretch. That's why they stopped, right by the Cat and Restaurant.
Right.
We're going to go all the way to the Collingswood Circle with it. So obviously, back then, they dedicated that land as wetland. And it should, is it not federally? And,
Well, Ron actually did bring up the same point you're bringing up now earlier, and we didn't have really great answer for him then either earlier in this meeting. Just, again, they're not building in the bog, so they did what they had to do to get their application approved, which was to leave the environmentally sensitive areas kind of untouched. Now, as to whether or not it will still be affected, we kind of all know what's really going to happen.
The other thing, so that you know, is that in fairness to the applicant, whoever they were at the time, they still had to go to the state, and they had to get a wetlands delineation, and they had to get a letter of inquiry with respect to what portions of the property couldn't be built on, and they had to comply with all of the state requirements around waterway protections and what have you, and they met the state's requirements. And they're building it apparently in an area that does not become impacted by all this water.
And how would you go about saying if we wanted to take it to a federal level? Because, I mean, they're on endangered species, can we get to federal?
Well, that was all part of the process, though, when they,
I think
that review of what you're talking about was all part of the process.
unfortunately, the only way that one could stop this now would be to probably file some sort of a class action suit. I don't know what the appropriate court venue is, Mr. Gannon, for residents to go along doing it. I join you because I'm so dead set against this debacle. But I don't know what recourse you have, unfortunately. Mr. Gannon, is there anything a group of residents could do in a class action to try and stop the project?
If there was in fact environmental issues and encroachments, you would have to petition the DEP, and then in effect, if the DEP is given the permits, then you'd have to challenge the DEP's determination. And that would probably be in the Bell Division if they make the final determination with regard to the permits. Or federal court if you had a federal statute that you could implicate the lawsuit.
And Mike, just so you know, the gentleman that was here earlier tonight, Ron, actually did go to the DEP and was dealt with unkindly.
The DEP basically said this has been approved, and they met the process. And
It is what it is.
unfortunately,
Well, thank you for your time.
thank you for your comments. Mr. Wisner, you're next. Come on down, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, Carl.
Hello, Mr. Wisner. Welcome. Just give us your name and address, please.
Good evening, everyone. Carl Wister, 376 Congress Street, Howell, New Jersey. We've talked before, I think, a while back about some of the littering that's developed on the White Street area from the Wawa. And I want to thank my neighbors because myself and quite a few other people are trying to police the area. Periodically we'll walk down the street with a big plastic bag, fill it up, and either return to the Wawa's receptacles, or once in a while actually take it in and get what they're after. But it still is a problem, and in thinking about the issue, it struck me that perhaps no littering signs on the street might help. And something that I might want to suggest, I don't know how you get littering signs, I don't know if that's something the town has to vote on or approve or whatever, but whatever process that will take, I'd like to suggest it be considered. The other thing is, it struck me, I've watched a lot there what's going on, and people take breaks in trucks, and various cars and trucks and things, and when they leave the lot, they don't want to get back out of the car after eating their sandwiches with their coworkers and their buddies and what have you. So when they go out on the street, they throw the stuff out the window. Sometimes it's just cups, other times it's full bags of garbage. I would think that where the exit is onto White Street, I've seen these huge jumbo garbage cans with like the big 2x2 foot opening in it. If that was put on the right side there, maybe it would make a difference with a no littering sign that before they hit the street, they at least have an opportunity to throw it out, because they don't want to get out of the cars, that's what's going on. And I also notice as the litter gathers on the street, the more litter there is, the more litter that goes down. Every now and then it's like really critical mass. You'll drive through there for a day and say, this doesn't look good, in 2 days this is going to be real bad. And sure, because what happens, when there's litter on the ground, people see it and think it's okay just to throw more. So that's when people in the area like myself go and get a bag and start cleaning it all up. And believe me, I can walk from Concord to Route 9, and I can fill a 32-gallon bag on that walk.
Mr. Julianski, can you maybe respond, and or maybe Mr. Kramer move in your direction? What more we can do here?
Yes, we did go visit the management not long ago.
At the Wawa?
Yeah, and we're going to follow up with that suggestion if we can. But I will also talk to our new DPW director about both signage and putting that on a regular patrol, so to speak, for clean communities.
I can tell you, when I've gone in and spoken to the management on several occasions at Wawa, they tell me it's not their problem. That what happens, and I said, well, now wait a minute. Theoretically and realistically, you own the land all the way back to Concord. Well, I don't know if we do or not. I said, well, I can tell you you do. And they still They just don't want to accept it. They don't want to go across the street. So what if we send our guys across the street and they get hit by a car? Well, what if I get hit by a car? Well, that's my problem, I guess. But anyway, any help you could do with that, I really appreciate it, because I don't consider they've been real receptive to what I consider reasonable requests to address it.
They need to be good neighbors.
Katrina, two thoughts. The first is, at least in my own personal situation, the Wawa in my neighborhood, before I was a councilman, what have you, put an application, or they were attempting to increase the size and put a gas station in. And the first thing they did was they wrote out to all the neighbors before they even filed an application, and hosted a meeting in their attorney's office and said, here's what we'd like to do, what are your ideas? The Wawa management people came in from Wawa, Pennsylvania, and they sat down and listened to the ideas and concerns of the residents. And to their credit, I don't know where I think their project may actually have gotten approved ultimately, and there's some other delays with the DOT. But apparently they agreed to do all these things and they're living up by it. So I'm just wondering if in addition to the local management, Wawa is not a franchise, it is a privately held company, maybe we can also send a letter to someone at their corporate level, aside from the Lord of store manager, just saying, we got a problem, we know you want to be a good neighbor, you run a lot of stores, they're well run, not a good neighbor here in this application. And in the
Aside
event,
from the litter point of view, they seem to be a pretty good neighbor. I mean, you know, they keep their own lot clean and they're friendly and, you know, they offer a very good service at a decent price.
sometimes if
It's
you
the
bump
litter
it
that
up,
they're not doing.
if we bump it up, that may help. Did you have a comment, Mr. Walsh?
Is there anything we can do with passing an ordinance where we hold these businesses responsible for what's there on the property? I spoke to the former mayor of Hamilton, and he said through code enforcement and ordinances, they were able to get the businesses to clean up after themselves and the property surrounding. Is there anything we can do?
There is something we can look at. It's property maintenance code under the BOCA code, which our community, and I would say is rather unique in not having.
We're unique in not having it?
Correct.
There you go.
Why don't we get after it?
I think on that point, about 4 years ago, there was a recommendation to put a BOCA code, and it was met with pretty fierce resistance and pretty overwhelming opposition. I was a member of the public that night. The fire marshal came in and
I recall that too, because it affected a lot of residences as well.
But if there is a way that, I mean, I think we all received a memo from Mr. Jackson that they're working on something toward a pseudo BOCA code.
Correct.
So I think, to Councilman Walsh's point, if there's something on an intermediary basis that we can do, where we pass an ordinance that code enforcement, if they can determine that the trash is in a certain proximity of this business owner, that they're responsible for cleaning it, and if they're not, we'll give them a bill. I mean, much like we've done with all these signs we picked up 600 signs.
We sort of have a bulletin of ordinances we have once
Okay.
we're ready for them, and that is one we've been working on.
Good, so you're on top of it.
Yeah, Mayor Van Alpen told me, the former Mayor Van Alpen told me directly over the weekend, I was with him in a walk with Joe we do a walk every year to honor a gentleman who died in Flight 93. He said he has been in the paper about some of the issue with trash and cleanup campaign that you've been talking about, Mayor. He said, Bob, he said, we passed an ordinance, we sent them out letters from code enforcement, they didn't clean it up, we sent somebody out to clean it up and build them. That's all.
Well, you got something that's coming to us, Mr. Janeski, on that point?
Yeah, like you said, we try to mirror it minus some of the
BOCA,
controversial
sorry.
items.
Because once somebody mentioned the word BOCA, Mr. Costigan just came up and he wants to talk about it.
Thanks for your comments, Carl.
Thanks, Mr. Wisner.
Thank you very much. Another point, kind of a similar but slightly different thing. I know there's been a lot of discussions over the last, 6 months or so about cleaning up Route 9 some way. And I think we've had a lot of positive ordinances with the facade ordinances and various other things. But what are we doing about buildings like that Pineview Grocery, the Casino Drive, stuff like the old Harris Mello Clock Factory at the corner of Route 9 and Georgetown Road there? Those buildings have been there for I've been here 33 years, I think they've been trashed almost the whole time.
Well, we can give you good updates on both of those as they come up.
Some of these matters are, have pushed us to the point of getting our attorney involved.
Okay.
So, I think we're limited in what we can say, but we are pursuing
The
them.
point is something's being done to
I think
address
we
it.
can tell you on Pineview, we sent out a construction official to determine whether or not the building could be forcibly demolished.
Right.
That got our attention, and and there has been some private correspondence from the property owner about what they intend to do. In the case of the clock, I personally get complaints about that all the time from people. It's an eyesore. It's structurally sound, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We don't have sort of an ugly building ordinance. But in any event,
Or make it.
yeah, I mean, code enforcement has also been out to that one as well.
Yeah, now, as a planner, I always look at those as opportunities. So, and now that we have our community design standards, you know, when it is time for some redevelopment to happen, I think we'll, because, you know, the timing, we'll perhaps get a better product. But, Mr. Worsner, doesn't mean I can't give you an update off the record.
Okay. Okay, and I'm just glad to hear something's being done, that it is being addressed. That makes me feel very good about the issue, because I don't think it has been for a long time. The last issue I wanted to ask about is something that my wife had brought up a couple of weeks ago, and that's the COA decision on the Rubenstein-Cutler Farm situation. That's been now probably 2 months, I believe, since the courts rendered a decision, something like that. It's been a while. And still the public has not been given formal notice of what's being done there, what the decision was. And, you know, I'm a reasonable guy, but I'm getting to be a little annoyed that it's not going public. It should. We need to know what's happened there. And I'd really like more than we can't comment because of legal reasons. When are we going to know that decision publicly?
Mr. Triansky, Mr. Gannon, aren't we poised to be acting on the settlement reasonably soon that's gone through counsel's office, without getting into the specifics of it? Are we sitting on a draft that's going back and forth between the parties?
I know Special Code Counsel has been updating the governing body on what's happened since the appellate division decision, which then sent it back to mediation. And I can reach out to him and find out where we're at, but my understanding was that it was pretty imminent.
Yeah, and Mr. Triansky, do you have the date for Ms. Bombaci? I know at the last executive session we talked about it, and both sides are still busy scribing out the terms that we negotiated.
Mary, it's still being negotiated.
Yeah, I was going to say, what you heard as a rumor is not true. It's still not done. So we can't tell you anything tonight.
I think, Mr. Whistle, we can tell you is that.
I think the point is if, I sympathize with what you're asking, but I think at the same time, I know the deputy mayor once said, you kind of have to trust us a little bit.
Well, wait a minute. Let me tell you, when you're not allowed to attend the meetings,
right.
You're told there are no records or notes being taken at the request of the builder. There's no knowledge. Everything's done in secret. I don't feel I need to be very patient.
How would you even know that?
If I may finish my point. Because we're at a stage.
Because I asked to go to the meetings and was told I can't.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that there aren't no.
Hold on, Mr. Triansky, why don't you finish?
You know, we're at a stage now that, you know, if we are to say things, we're sort of making life a little easier for the attorney on the other side.
All right.
And we just can't.
Here's what I think we can tell you, Mr. Wisner. Councilor Walsh and I were the council's liaison at meetings in Trenton. We don't like the rules either. We were required to agree, as was the other side of the negotiation, that we would not disclose any of the comments publicly. These are the rules that COA imposes on every town in the state of New Jersey, so that the issues don't become played out in the media, and so that neither the town or any of these developers become compromised through things that might be said in the public at meetings to reporters, etc., etc. COA was very specific with us, which we were not all that thrilled with. COA does maintain minutes. COA does maintain the different discussions and things that are happening.
Does the public have access to those minutes?
Not yet.
I don't know at what point they may. Maybe Mr. Gannon can comment on that.
I would suggest you make a Government Record Act's request and see how they respond.
So you can do an open request to the Department of Community Affairs that oversees that process. We came up with a general person's agreement in terms of where we were, and the attorneys were both charged with striking what we agreed to at that meeting to paper. And it has been back and forth at that process since that time, although word we've gotten from our COA counsel is no side is changing any conditions. It's putting together the agreement. I share in your observation. You know, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence faster than this has been written. But unfortunately, we've got to make certain that we do this the right way. But there isn't anything that we are intentionally keeping from the public And there'd be nothing that would make any of the 5 members of this council happier than to say, here's what it is, here's the final arrangement, and it's done.
To say I'm frustrated by it would be an understatement.
We all are. It's frustrating.
Here early June.
Well, I will be back and ask again in a few weeks, because I want an answer. And I'm tired of waiting.
Thank you. We agree. Okay, Mr. Spitzner, welcome. Come on down, sir. Hello, Mr. Spitzner. Welcome.
Good evening. Dave Spitzner, 197 White Street. I share a lot of the same concerns that Mr. Worcester spoke of.
Mr. Spitzner, they can't hear you. Would you pull the microphone a little closer?
I share a lot of the same concerns that Mr. Worcester spoke about concerning the walk loss litter and whatnot. I mean, basically, the store is run very, very well. It's just the litter problem.
Customers.
And the customers, yeah. But
we have been elected to do the job. There are certain things that need to go to referendum. The town passed 2 different referendums on open space. We know how people feel about it. We're very public about how we want to go about attempting to acquire Pines Pinnacle. The concern on Pinnacle, and it was 4-1. The only person that objected was Mr. Tabasco. Mr. Walsh, Mrs. Showmaker, Mr. Malave, and I all agreed 4-1 to disengage on Pinnacle because we didn't know what the end outcome could be in a jury trial, taking the property via condemnation, and what the public tenor is around that whole process, what the ultimate price could be. And trying to be fiscally prudent, we felt we couldn't roll the dice. So at least that's my position on the issue. That doesn't mean that we're not attempting to have conversations with Pinnacle about still buying the property, but not through the condemnation process. And hopefully there's an opportunity to still buy and preserve that particular land. The Harms acquisition is huge. That in and of itself was 150 acres. It's extraordinary. In terms of the other piece of property, it was when a member of the public really had asked some particular questions, and I said, we do have other. One of the gentlemen got up and said, well, what are you going to do with some of the dollars you had already earmarked toward Pinnacle? And I gave the honest truth. We already have another piece of property in mind. It is a part of a potential litigation settlement, and we all collectively, unanimously, felt that it was the right thing to do to pursue it. I'd be delighted to tell you exactly where it is, but if we did, we'd compromise potentially the ultimate sale price and other aspects of the litigation. And I know that Mr. Tabasco has made reference to this before. Hopefully people have some faith that we were elected to do the job, and we're trying our darndest to do it as best we can. People might not always agree, but I think we've demonstrated an eye toward being fiscally conservative. We had several hundred protesters at a meeting when we cut the budget. So I think we've taken this fiscal responsibility issue pretty seriously, and I can give you assurances. We're not going to buy any piece of property without doing our due diligence and without paying what we feel is a fair market price in what we hope will be able to secure the best interest of the taxpayers.
Well, the only point that I'm trying to make here, I mean, like I said, it was deemed the crown jewel. It wouldn't be the crown jewel. I mean, if you were to annex those 2 pieces of property, and I just hope that if you're acquiring another property, that the cost of that property is in line with the other properties you're buying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. We appreciate Mr. Spitzer. Mr. Gentillo, welcome, sir. Mr. Costigan, are you still here? Was there anyone else that didn't have a chance to put their name down that would like to be recognized? Okay, Mr. Morello, I don't know you, sir.
My name's Tom Corcoran.
Okay.
Benny Cantello, Casino Drive. I won't take up much time. I'm glad you said that, Joe, about not wanting to condemn that property and doing a fair thing. That's why I came tonight. I got a million neighbors. Peter, it's to you I got to ask this. You've told me 100 times. These people don't believe me. I've been here 4 decades and they still don't believe me. I told them that you said they're worried about their property being condemned and taken. And I told them the only time you do that is for roads or a school, something that's necessary. So what they want me to hear when you say that you're against condemnation, taking their properties, big, small, whatever. I'm talking people with houses, and,
What people are you speaking and whereabouts?
all of them. There's Casino, Adelphia, all through this area. They're paranoid about this, they really are.
What I will say, and it kind of is consistent with what I've said in the past, we as an entity have always had the power of condemnation. We didn't necessarily need to be a redevelopment authority to go and condemn properties. But our goal is not to go just condemn properties for no specific good reason that doesn't promote the general health, safety, and welfare of this town. When Dave just spoke about the crown jewel properties remaining to be acquired that were big pieces of property, well, those 2 properties actually did go through a condemnation process. So I am not one that would outright say I want to eliminate the power of the governing body to be able to go condemn property when there's an absolute good purpose for doing it. We're not just going to go haphazardly do that, though. I was the dissenting vote when it was voted 4-1 to stop going after the Pinnacle piece, because we were already within the condemnation process. There was an assessed value that we had come up with. There was an assessed value that they had come up with. We were in the middle of negotiations. It was about to go to a jury situation where a determination was going to be made. I thought we'd probably wind up somewhere in the middle, but there was the risk that it could also go higher. Now, having knowledge of the market, I knew that probably wasn't going to happen, so I was very comfortable with continuing that process. The other 4 council members weren't. Next, right? So we still are pursuing back channel ways to try to get it. If I was the owner of that property at one time and in negotiations with the town, then I might be a little leery about going into negotiations again, and I mentioned that point when we were talking about it back then. But just to very specifically answer your question, I am never going to say that the governing body should not have the power to do condemnation when there is a good purpose.
No,
I will also say, though,
they know that.
I will also say, though, that in hearing that we are not, again, just going to go haphazardly take somebody's house to, for some small little thing. That was a 150-acre property and a 140-acre piece of property that were the crown jewels of the town.
No, all they're concerned is the reason for condemnation. That's all they keep asking me. I can't answer them. I'm not on the council.
Well, when we had heard this, I guess about a year and a half ago, we had considered, Highway 33 being an area we wanted to have some commercial development done, and we created that redevelopment authority. That, I guess, scared people, but quite candidly, we always had the power to condemn. We just wanted to have, for grant receiving purposes and et cetera, an official authority name, so that's why we went about doing that. But as you know, and everybody in Howell already knows, Highway 33 presents a problem to us in that the properties are not that deep on either side of the road. So not too much has actually happened with that. We were told by people when I say people, I mean professionals, that maybe it wasn't...
33, you just talk commercial anyhow.
Right.
Mr. Walsh, you have a comment?
I just want to make it clear, I, as an individual, do not believe in taking people's property unless it's for public use. We need it for a school or hospital. We need to take 10 feet to widen the road. Other than that, I believe in the American dream. Get a piece of land, you have a house, you have a family, a piece of land's yours. As long as you live within the law, it should be yours. It should never be taken for profit. I went down to Long Branch, I spoke with some people down there, and it was just from down to the eat. I spoke with some people. I think what's happened to them is a sin. I think it is wrong that the houses are being condemned so that people can make profit. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's the way to go. Okay. I personally would never do it.
Mr. Tintello, what you should know, and you may want to get a copy of this to give to the people that have asked this. When Tim Konopka was still the mayor, we passed a resolution unanimously. The resolution said that the council would in no uncertain terms take anyone's home, private property. We actually put it to writing and voted on it. So there is a resolution that we unanimously passed saying that exactly what Mr. Walsh said, that we would never take someone's home. We would never take their property, that it would have to be for an issue of the public good. You need to build a road. You need to build a school. It's for some public purpose. So I don't think there's any question. I think
it's kind of what I told them.
There's a written vote that memorializes it very officially. That
I think it was unanimous.
It was a unanimous vote. Mr. Konopka, Mrs. Showmaker, the three of us. We felt so strongly about the issue that we voted to ensure that that would not happen here. Now, it was a resolution, it's not an ordinance. We were told you can't pass ordinances to prohibit state powers that the town already has. Right. But in any event, we all feel that way, and any one of these people should also give any one of us a call.
Okay, thank you.
Can I see a copy of that, please? That was put into my...
Okay, Mr. Corkery.
Yeah.
Tom Corkery? He's coming in. Okay. Sure. Mr. Morelli, you're next. Good evening, Mr. Corkery. If you wouldn't mind, just give us your name and address for the record, please. Welcome.
My name is Tom Corkery. I live at Maple Avenue. I've been there for 13 years. I've never been compelled to attend a council meeting before. I'm a little bit nervous speaking in front of a group of people.
You're fine.
I have some concerns about this whole thing. Crossing development. I understand that they've already cut down the trees there and the development's already been started. And basically, I understand that you guys were not the council that was approved this process in the beginning. But I don't like the fact that there's, at this point, we're saying that there's nothing else that we can do to try and, if not stop what we're doing now, to try and limit the development. I understand that it was increased from 350 to 500 units. This area was, the woman that spoke earlier about the 200-year-old forests, 200-year-old trees that are being cut down. There's all types of endangered species besides the bottom turtle. There's a great horned owl, there's a pileated woodpecker, there's a corn snake. What about the groundwater that's going to be affected there? There's an aquifer that runs there, with the whole development there. We drink the well water from that aquifer that probably runs directly underneath that development. Has anybody done any studies or, how that's going to affect the groundwater in our development? What about all the other wildlife there? There's hundreds of deer that live back there. Where are all those deer going to go when we cut down all those trees? What about all the traffic accidents that are going to be caused by those deer that are out on the highways? The traffic over there right now is unbelievable. You can't pull out. It takes 10 minutes to pull out from Yellow Book Road, Colts Neck corner, the blinking light. People are taking more and more chances because the traffic flow is continuous from Manalapan, Route 527, all the way to Whitecroft Road. There's no traffic light there. Yellow Book Road, when you're going westbound on Route 33, trying to make a left turn onto Yellow Book Road, there's a telephone pole right on the shoulder of the road where you turn left onto Yellow Book Road. You have tractor trailers coming by at 50 miles an hour, and there's not much room between the car turning left and that telephone pole. There was just a fatality not too long ago, a few days ago, I think, as a matter of fact, right there by the fire academy. How many more people are going to be killed over there before we do something about the traffic? The traffic, there should be a light at Yellow Brook Road and Colsack Road there, where the blinking light is.
That actually is the turn lights. The blinking light, as a part of their state DOT approval, they do have to put a permanent traffic light here.
And if I recall correctly, there's supposed to be a light at Fairfield and W too, where the schools are.
There will also be a light in the county's actually putting that one in Fairfield in 500.
What about Yellow Brook Road right there? There's nothing in the works. I understand it takes years to have the traffic light installed, but I mean, someone's going to be killed there. The line of cars that wait to pull out of Yellow Brook Road, it gets longer and longer every day, and people take more and more risks to pull out there because the traffic runs so long.
I take that way to get to work, and I know what the traffic is like heading down 33.
At least maybe they should consider moving that telephone pole so that when the tractor trailer does come by there, the people who are sitting there waiting to make a left-hand turn aren't rear-ended by vehicles that are traveling that way.
I think, Mr. Corcoran, all your points are valid. Part of my frustration, I've gone back and read the minutes of the meetings from a lot of these applications, particularly the council meetings when they actually voted to change the zoning. Mrs. Dixell and a handful of other people spoke out pretty passionately, but unfortunately, I don't know whether people didn't know about it. I don't know how it was advertised, but I've read those minutes probably a dozen times. There was very little opposition, and so they changed the zoning, which allowed this to become permissible. Honestly, there really isn't anything, and it frustrates the hell out of me personally, there isn't anything we can do to stop this damn thing. Short of a class action suit by a group of residents.
Why can't we initiate something like that? There was a group of residents here tonight. We were never notified. I've been there since 1993, and they say, Mr. Walsh told me earlier that you have to be within 200 feet of
Well, at the time,
development.
At that time, you had to be within 500 feet.
500 feet.
State law requires it to be 200, so we had to make our law match what the state has. But at the time, the state didn't, we weren't required to change it to 200. So do you live within 500 feet of any parcel of that?
I think I do. I'm not sure exactly how far the development's going to come to the back of our properties, but we drink the water that comes from an aquifer that I'm sure runs underneath that property. So, I mean, how's that going to affect the well water that we drink? You know, there could be contaminants in the water that, you know, we won't be able to drink the water at some point there, or, you know, the risk of our health and, you know, the whole development. There's 40-something houses, people live there. I'm sure you could get every one of those people to sign up for a class action lawsuit if the township was willing to do something. Maybe just try and reduce the number of houses.
Let me tell you what the town did. We attempted to stop the development. We investigated what appeared to be unusual conditions that led to the approval. We concluded that we felt that some of the people that were involved in the approval had reason to be conflicted, and we overturned the approval.
That's when I first heard about this development.
We overturned it,
in the paper about
went
this.
to the applicant, hired the O.J. Simpson defense team at considerable expense on their part, and we defended the case in front of a judge, and the judge said that it's just a coincidence that so much money had been funneled to certain people that were in positions of influence to put 500 houses in, and that he didn't find there were issues with it, nor did he find that it was a problem.
Sounds to me like they were paid off
I
to
would never
approve
think
the
that.
planning process. Well, as a citizen, you know, was just reading the newspaper, it sure looks to me that way, that, you know, somebody got donations and they say, okay, you know, you donate this X amount of money and we'll say, okay, we'll approve your development, you know.
I'll be real straight with you two right now. It's not worth your time.
There's nothing that we can do.
You're going to spend a lot of dollars and get nowhere.
How about even something to try and reduce the number of the houses?
Can't. This developer has an approval from the planning board that gives them a certain number of homes that they can build that's been memorialized, it's been ratified by the planning board.
It's a shame.
It is a shame. It's a shame.
We were lucky through negotiations to get, 72 senior affordable homes built, because the original approval had 0. So,
Because at the time, the COLA laws were different.
to get 72 senior affordable homes built was about as good a win as we could hope for when the judge said, give them the approvals, let them put the shovel in the ground.
But that's, you know, Mrs. Bixel, I wish we had her living in our development, the way she spoke so passionately about trying to preserve forests. I mean, that should have been turned into a parkland, never mind you know, there's trails running all throughout that, you know. That should have been turned into a park, never mind the housing development, you know.
Mrs. Dixell speaks that passionately about every inch of how that she thinks something's wrong being done. That's just where she lives.
I wish she was on our side as far as getting some kind of class action lawsuit to try and...
I can hear the passion within you too, and you directly what Ron and what Mike also said earlier tonight.
Mrs. Dixell did come out, so that you know, I've read the minutes. She came out on this issue, and she raised a lot of concerns.
I have a neuromuscular disease called myasthenia gravis. It affects my speech, so...
You're doing
sounds like I might have been drinking, but I haven't.
No,
we hear you loud and clear.
Would have known it, and...
I'm just being very candid with you that any money spent to try to stop this now is just a waste of dollars.
It's a shame.
Put it to
How
something
about
good
the
use.
future? For other Howell residents, is there a way that people can be notified before this development? This was 5 years ago.
Yeah, one of the things that
I was never notified.
we have passed a law that requires any applicant to put a sign on their property, a fairly large sign, that indicates that an application is going to take place, and it puts where to get the information from. And we passed that law last year so that we could ensure that just because you didn't live within 200 feet, maybe you lived a mile away, but you were concerned about it, or you lived 3 miles away, but it's your town. We passed a law that requires any applicant to post a big sign. So if you're just driving by and you see something that looks a little unusual, now it's there and it's posted. And I can tell you, people read the signs, because I get their emails saying, I saw a big sign on a big piece of property, can you tell me what the deal is? And that has to go up before they even have their public hearing. So we think that that's a major improvement to make certain that people are aware. That law didn't exist prior.
Well, I certainly would have been here 5 years ago when this was all coming about if I had known about it. I'm sure that all the other people that live in my development would have been there as well. I mean, because we don't live within 200 feet of it, we're still directly affected by this because of the well water, the wildlife. The deer come in our yard and eat all the shrubs now. When they cut all those trees down, they have nowhere to go. There's red fox there, there's pileated woodpecker, there's great horned owl,
I'll
there's
get
a
my
pine snake.
last shot off on this issue because this really irritates me. You wouldn't have had a way to know because they fast-tracked this so fast. It was on the agenda within 2 weeks after the developer requested it, and it was fast-tracked the whole way through, and it's undeniable, and the record reflects it in every step of the way. So I don't know how they would have made you know because I never saw that. I never saw a municipality act on something as quick as they did on that. That's just my feeling.
It sounds pretty fishy to me. I mean, you know, how they got this all through like that. I just wish there was something that we could just throw our hands up and say, it's too late now. They've already cut down some of the trees, but, you know, what can we do to save the rest of it? You know?
We appreciate your comments, Mr. Cook. Thank you. Mr. Costigan, we skipped you before. Would you mind if we get to Mr. Morello? Okay, Mr. Morello, come on up, sir. Welcome. Mr. Morello, if you wouldn't mind, just give us your name and address, please.
Mike Morello, Mason Gordy Lane, here in the Ramstown section. I don't know if the council recalls, I am the township liaison on the New Jersey Transit line. It's kind of interesting that with the topic that came up tonight was the frequency engineering site, because I do have some questions about that as far as the settlement. A year ago, Mr. Nunziata was there at the meeting with myself and Bruce Davis, where New Jersey Transit was actually looking at that site to put a possible train station. And I don't know if I heard the facts right tonight, but there was a big article in the Sunday Asbury Park Press, and I'm really speaking more tonight of what's in the town's best interest. And although I agree the settlement might be a very good short-term solution, is there anything in there or has been any consideration in regard to that site being developed or now approaching New Jersey Transit about that site, since there's a lot of federal funding involved? Because to me, I think I heard a number, and someone can repeat it, $34,000
No.
that will go to tax rolls each year?
No, it's actually, it's $30,000. That's the assessed value.
So $30,000 a year will go to tax?
That's the assessed value for the first 2 years, and that's undeveloped. So
Well, it's cleaned up.
Yeah.
when it's clean,
When it's
they
cleaned
actually
up.
have some
But
buildings.
when it's cleaned up, part of the settlement is we have to change it so that it can be subdivided. And as they're cleaned up, they can come on the tax rolls. I think there's 11 buildings.
It's either 9 or 11, I don't
Okay.
Well, it's just a matter of due diligence. I mean, I think we waited this long to get the settlement, and with the New Jersey Transit action really picking up over the last 6 months, wouldn't it be worth it to do a little bit more due diligence? Because I would think the value of this land is now tenfold with the railroad tracks going through there and New Jersey Transit having the right of way. And they were very interested in the land at the time, but it was in the foreclosure process. Now that there's a lot of grant money that's been approved by the federal government and the state and New Jersey Transit, is it worth it for the town to do a little bit more due diligence and go back to New Jersey Transit now and find out what their plans are? I know one of the things it was in the paper Sunday was that the new consultant that was hired actually came up with numbers that debunked the Monmouth County Planning Board. And the Monmouth County and Ocean County Planning Boards are meeting with New Jersey Transit tomorrow.
I think what we can say, Mr. Mello, is that there's nothing that prohibits that property and its owner from having a discussion and making the new owner aware that New Jersey Transit would have an interest. There's nothing like talking about putting in
I'm sure there are.
business and industry, put a train station or a stop station right there. That would be great from a commercial perspective and put an industry and what have you. So
I was just thinking from the township's perspective, maybe long-term, when we're talking these things finally come to fruition, 10, 12, 15 years from now, if there would be a bigger revenue stream through parking, such as the Middletown train stations, Metro Park, where the town would have a bigger revenue stream from that site and would serve the public good in a better capacity. I just think we waited this long, maybe it's worth it to go back to New Jersey Transit.
We don't own it, that right?
You mean in terms of us keeping it and owning it?
Not so much owning it, but going back to New Jersey Transit and finding out with the plans in place, would grant money cover the purpose of the plan? Could it generate more than $1.5 million?
It's a closed deal.
Is it close?
We went to the judge, the judge said, no, done.
Yeah, part of the issue we have, Mr. Mullin, is that we would have posted in excess of $1 million, which was what the low bid was. The concern that the town had, so, and we've talked about it more freely now, the concern that we had was, we didn't know going in what someone could have bid. Plus, the property is terribly contaminated. And we didn't want to wind up being a low bidder, and now guess what? You're the proud owner of contaminated
And you must have
environmental wasteland, and you've got to spend all this money to have the earthquake to clean it. Yeah, there can be some grant monies, but you're not guaranteed to get it. You got contaminated, potentially contaminated water. Your point is right on. I mean, it would be fantastic if that could have been something where we own the land, they put a train station there, we collect parking revenues, and it would have been perfect. The problem was we were not in a position financially to bid to buy it. That was the real gamble, because we actually expected Lehman Brothers, who was into that property for $10 million.
To put it on the record, okay? So that you understand, I was in Trenton for the bankruptcy hearing. Gentleman who bought that property could have bought it for $1.
That's right.
There was no other bidder. That was the only person that came to the bankruptcy hearing with the $500,000 to put up. They had to put up $500,000 to be eligible to bid. There were two other entities there at the bankruptcy hearing that said they were interested in the property. They did not come with $500,000 to put up. There was only one eligible bidder to bid on the property. That person that bid $1, the property was theirs, we would have gotten $0.
But here's what I think we should do.
Yeah, I wasn't recommending the township buy the property. I wouldn't be in favor of that at all as a taxpayer. But I think maybe if before anything is signed, is it possible from the township standpoint, I don't know if the resolution, is it done deal? Obviously, paperwork has to be signed, I would think, but is it, more valuable to New Jersey Transit now? Can the town get more than $1.5 million with this in play and being approved by the federal government?
Unfortunately, we couldn't, only because the U.S. bankruptcy court made the adjudication and took it. But, to your point, what could be done is maybe for Mr. Giuliaschi, Mr. Gannon, and Mr. Kress is still here, maybe there can be a discussion with the owner. I mean, they're a neighbor now, and we've had a favorable negotiation, where we could potentially get engaged with them and New Jersey Transit around the discussion around their property. And maybe in some way come up with a joint municipal, private New Jersey Transit project that accomplishes some of what you said, which could be public revenue from a joint train station parking lot, who knows what it could be. But if, and I think in your report you talked about, or maybe you mentioned to me sidebar about frequency being an ideal spot for a station. So maybe we can have a discussion with the owner and say, before you get too far, what you might want to do there, maybe you should consider this and see what can come of it.
Yeah, I just think long-term, it's a perfect revenue generating stream for the town. And it, 3 months ago, this wasn't in play, but now it's got approval, so.
Can we have Mr. Chudensky give you, through the right channels, maybe have a sidebar conversation with the owner, and let's see if we can get them, New Jersey Transit, to start talking.
Yeah, I've read your report that you gave us about, was that 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about a month ago.
Okay. It was very interesting. I've done some other research with the county. And some of it exciting, some of it scary to me.
No, I just think my perspective, just from a township resident, if it's going to come through the town, I think the town should take it to its advantage to make it benefit the town. That's the only way I'm looking at it. So.
Good point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morello. Mr. Costigan, is there anyone else here for Mr. Costigan? I think that was it.
John Costigan, 214 Birdsall Road. While I respect the gentleman who just preceded me on his passion for the railroad coming through and getting nice station and frequency engineering, I'm not passionate at all about it. I may be passionate, but not towards it. But that's not why I come up. You piqued my interest with the word BOCA. The prior administration had come out with a big BOCA code, and I immediately made up flyers. BOCA is a 4-letter word. And I distributed it along my district, and I gave it out to other people, and they distributed it all the time. And the reason was because it was an overbearing type of regulation that they were thinking about putting forth. And part of it was to come on your property. It got to the point that they could tell you, well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they could regulate the color of your house, things like that. The upkeep of your house. I mean, within reason, it's not a bad thing. And what Mr. Wisner was talking about on compelling Wawa or somebody trash-generating businesses to take responsibility and accountability to clean up themselves, it would be a good thing, that aspect of BOCA. As I recall, BOCA originally came out of Illinois or Midwest someplace, and it caught on in some areas, but people can adopt certain parts of it. They don't have to adopt the whole thing. So, might be a good idea if it's done judiciously.
Appreciate your comments.
There was something else I was going to say, but I forget everything anymore, so it doesn't matter. So it's probably this as well, perhaps I'll... Oh, you know what I wanted to do? 2 things. I never got a chance, Megan DeBell, to thank you for your leadership on the planning board on the Farmingdale Estates. Even with your fine leadership at that time, it looked like some of the planning board was trying to get it back into going back up to 24 house instead of the 18. So, thank you. And I wanted to point something else out. I never got a chance to thank Mr. Chinicki. You guys got a piece of gold there with Mr. Chinicki. He's a great guy. I've spoken to him at length. He's sharp. He's doing a good job as far as I see. He was kind enough to give me a little bit of time so I could discuss some of the open space and farmland and preserving more farmland, along with the CFO, Mr. Filiatro. And first chance I got to thank you. And I never did welcome you aboard. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kosky, I will tell you that I have never been more proud. And I'm going to single him out and embarrass him. We have phenomenal town employees. I am so proud he's our manager. I hope he's here for 100 years.
There you go.
He's just fantastic.
Echo the mayor's sentence.
Okay, was that it? I'm sorry.
I would just say the people to my left keep me going every day.
You're absolutely right about that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may take full credit for bringing Mr. C on board.
James O'Brien, 42 Conifer Street.
Welcome, Mr. O'Brien.
Just, I was wondering if I could get a quick update in regards to the Parkway water and the initial rendering by the judge that recommended an 84% increase. And I'm not sure on this, but I think there's a final hearing coming up in Newark, possibly as early as tomorrow.
Mr. Gannon, would you, if you don't mind, Mr. Gannon?
We did put our objections on the record after you raised the issue, and there was a decision that was supposedly going to be made by the BPU, but for some reason it's a little unusual, and maybe because of the nature of the issues and also the magnitude of the increase, but they haven't come out with anything yet from the BPU, so that's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Mr. O'Brien, you mentioned you may be aware there's a hearing tomorrow?
That's what Mrs. O'Brien informed me today, and she thought
Better.
that, yes, she stays on top of this a little better than I do.
Right. I don't know if it was a hearing per se, there may be a decision that's being read.
Maybe a decision coming down as early as tomorrow.
Can we,
and I didn't know if you had a confirmation on that or not.
I'll talk to Mr. Corrigan because he's the one that's been CC'd on the service list, but we'll certainly make a phone call first thing in the morning.
and can we, obviously if there's any, I know you do this anyway, Mr. Gannon, but if you, once Mr. Janeski, once you get that, if you please phone call each member of the council and also Mr. and Mrs. O'Brien in particular, that would be appreciated.
I will work through the manager's office.
Please, thank you. Anything else, Mr. White?
So it's your understanding that there might have been a little pause in their decision, that somebody actually struck a nerve? maybe?
Yeah. You know, a lot of times that the administrative law judge's decision will be somewhat rubber stamped. I don't think that's the case in this instance. And we've been in contact. We entered into negotiations somewhat on the same side with the ratepayer advocate. And so we're getting some of that feedback, although they wouldn't confirm one way or the other. But hopefully we'll hope for the best.
Yeah, maybe only 50%.
I know it's a little ironic, yes, you know, that's a good one, but that's very problematic, and I think we've also, as mayor and council, are committed also to maintaining the water quality, and that's still an issue that we're dealing with and dealing with our water quality consultant, Sprinkerhoff, so we haven't left that avenue either.
No, I'm well aware of that. I appreciate everybody's diligence on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Brown. Mrs. Dixell, you'll be the last speaker. You have some brief comments on Colts Neck Crossing?
Nothing that I haven't, all right, I'll just, nothing that I haven't brought up
If you
before.
would just again introduce yourself.
Barbara Dixell, the Villages. When Colts Neck Crossing came out, I was at the planning board several times. Again, I have deep concern for the citizens of this town when you put 500 more senior homes in, and also with the hidden view online, and we are providing services. I keep saying it, I've said it, I've asked the applicant every time he came to the planning board, will you please consider giving us an ambulance? Buy us an ambulance, you're putting 500 more 500 more houses in this town. We cannot spread the emergency services in this town so thin. I'm afraid that somebody's going to die. I have that great fear. We have the most wonderful response teams, the most wonderful emergency services. I have great fear that if there's a few emergencies at the same time in this town, we're going to have a problem. If there is a way that anybody in this town can reach out to this applicant, this Colts Neck Crossing, again, I beg them to give us a fire engine and give us an ambulance. And as silly as it may seem, I think it's critical. I think it's critical, and I think I remembered one of the fire chiefs getting up and saying also that the services cannot, the emergency services cannot be spread this thin. It's going to be a critical situation, and I don't want to see that happen. Where somebody will need to have a heart attack with oxygen, and then there's a whole team on the other end of town, and no one can get to somebody who desperately needs it on another end of town. So that's still where I'm at with Colts Neck Crossing. And Mr. Gannon, just so you remember, September 25th is the intervener's response in writing to the Jersey American. Okay. Thank you. If they can reach out to this guy, I'm still begging them to give us an ambulance, and I'm not kidding with you. I'm not really trying to make rhetoric or anything. It's really critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gannon. Mr. Giuseppe, is there any business?
There's just one announcement I have, if that's okay. With the leaf season coming up, we are getting notices out, and we have a slight change in the way we're going to be collecting leaves this year. In the past, residents...
We're going to pick them up?
We're actually going to pick them up this year. I'm being facetious, I apologize.
But it's a slight change, and I'm going to be probably reminding every audience that I'm in front of. In the past, we've co-mingled brush, tree trimmings, and leaves, and we have to get a claw out there to separate them so the leaf bank can pick up the leaves. This year, we're asking residents to please separate the brush and tree trimmings from the leaves and create separate piles. We think that will help us save a good deal of time. So that notice is going out with that slight change. I wanted the council to be aware of it.
Is there any other business the council needs to discuss tonight? Nothing. Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, Lee.
Tom, you'd be surprised